episode 151. This is Matthew, and in this episode of Still Unbelievable, I have a long chat with David from Skeptics and Seekers. See the link in the show notes. David and I are going to do a regular catch-up where we talk about some current events and a lot of nonsense. David and I always have a lot of fun when we chat. Nothing ever goes to plan, but we do cover serious topics, and sometimes we do it very irreverently. This first chat is over 3 hours, and we covered politics, DNA, family ancestry. I reveal that I've discovered a dark secret in my family. You have to listen to find out what that is. Moving house, apologetics, and a few other things. As always, leave your thoughts and suggestions in the comments or at reasonpress@gmail.com. Enjoy.
Here's the thing, folks. Matt and I are here for a palaver that we will do on a fairly regular basis. As you can see, this is a little bit more casual. I'm not introducing this thing as any particular kind of thing. I am.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Still Unbelievable.
Skeptics and Seekers,
your regular host, and here with me, joining me for a beautiful conversation, is David from Skeptics and Seekers. How was that? Nobody will notice, will they?
No, I mean, especially the way I very clearly put in Skeptics and Seekers in there. They'll never hear your show's introduction. Technology couldn't possibly fix that.
No, absolutely. Oh, if only there was a still small voice that could interrupt that for us.
I think that was it.
Yes.
Why does God speak with a still small voice? Because when he spoke to Job, he was like shouting from the sky.
Absolutely. When I was in trouble with either of my parents, the still small voice was absolutely not the tone that was used.
No one uses a still small voice. When you're right. I mean, if it's it's not a still small voice. It's at least, an inside broadcast voice. But a still small voice.
Still small voice. Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you don't know what you're hearing. You don't know who you're hearing. You may be hard of hearing. I don't understand.
We do know what is being heard. It's a voice in the head. We know that bit.
Okay, if it's a voice in the head, can it be drowned out by other noises?
I guess so.
I mean, hearing happens.
Trying to say something facetious, but I was being too polite. British on a Sunday morning.
Right? No, I get it. I mean, I just fixated on the still small voice this morning for some reason, and it just dawns on me that there's no situation where that seems to make any sense. If God speaks to me, let it not be some still small voice that I mistake for the normal voices in my head. And if it's something that I'm not gonna mistake, why is it a voice at all?
Yeah.
Why does it need to be a voice?
So, question, because it touches on a very topical subject. When Moses came down the mountain and there was that whole shenanigans with the golden calf, did God use a still small voice?
I don't know. I don't
It's
think
been
they would
too
have
long
heard.
since I've read that passage. I can't remember.
I don't think they would have heard it over the drunken revelry, honestly. So.
They were having too much fun to hear. That's your answer. They were having too much fun to hear the voice of God.
Okay. So look, let's just jump right into a very serious issue. It has been plaguing me for several days, and I've been hoping to have a chance to talk it out with you because you have a very good head for this sort of thing.
Uh-oh.
Okay, where is my fucking gold statue? All right, I hear that we all get statues now. Where is my? No one has talked to me. No one has had me pose. Where is my statue?
So I have a mental image. Can you just clarify your use of the word "fucking" in that? Is that just an expression of frustration at not having a gold statue, or is it a description of the activity of the statue?
That's the description of the statue.
Yeah, that is not the mental image I wanted. guys, David does not need to be depicted with a 4 foot golden penis. I mean,
I
really, this
four.
is
I was
Sunday. This is
four.
Sunday morning. You know, can we
Maybe
not have
four.
that in? Look, we're supposed to be having a minimum of a 1 hour serious chat here. As part of this regular thing we're going to do, and we're already talking about golden sex. Come on, David.
Are we?
Really?
Is this really the world though that we live in? I mean, Trump receives
He's
a
Jesus, don't you
gold
know? He healed
statue.
that
I mean,
person in that AI image,
how do
rose them
we?
back to death, and now he deserves a statue for it. Come on,
How do you
can't a guy
get
get a
here?
break?
How do you get here, man? How do we? How does? It's like, oh, this is just a normal thing now. It's. Can you
Yeah.
imagine any American or British, because the British have been weird for a long time too, any American or British head of state besides a king, so you may not have quite as much history with that, a king or queen, because they be weird, um, receiving a golden statue of themselves in their lifetime.
No. And genuinely, and I mean this with all sincerity, this is not me being polemic at all. If such a thing were to happen here in Britain, there would be riots in the streets in London. Genuinely, there would be.
And genuinely, there should be. So I don't look. I know I'm a mindless radical that people can just dismiss most things that I say about politics. I'm sure, but um, it's just one of the things that I've been fascinated with for a long time, probably as long as my early 20s, when I started thinking about it. When I was old enough to consider Hitler. Um, this is a man who, we think of as so evil. His name is a curse word, pretty much.
Hmm.
Um, it's a banned word on some platforms, literally banned. I think it's banned in Germany. um, they really want to distance themselves as far from the man and his insanity as possible. However, I used to spend quite a bit of time wondering how Germany got there.
Hmm.
How do you get to a Hitler in a fairly modern time? We're not talking about the Hans of China, samurai of Japan. We're not talking about those times. We're talking about in historical terms, fairly modern times. Things weren't so different that it shouldn't be a shock that you get a Hitler rising up. Germany was not a terrible country.
Hmm.
I mean, they were, a country in some trouble, perhaps. They were, countries go through periods like that. That's not unheard of, where Germany was at the time during the rise of Hitler. Mistakes were made. Shit happens. We get on track over a few decades. So it shouldn't be expected that you get a Hitler. And if you don't dive deeply into the minutia of the history in that period, if you're reading history and then you happen along, oh, and Hitler, that's a huge jump. And you have to wonder how a thing like that happens. And since Trump 2, um, I have been saying, that's how.
Yeah.
Um, and so there are some things that I would like to say, if you don't mind, that are vaguely historical, somewhat mansplaining, some of it probably wrong and overly simplified. But I want to trace this a little bit. And so the first ingredient, I think, is that you've got to have a country in a little bit of trouble. It may be economic trouble. It's probably how a lot of things start. A little bit of an economic crisis, a little bit of an identity crisis about who you are. You have to have some past where you feel like you are greater than what you are now, and you've got to have some bit of the population that is dissatisfied. So I think it has to begin there. And so when Trump started saying "Make America Great Again," that was a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
It's, by the way, in history, whenever leaders start talking like that, it's always a red flag. I contend that is never a good sign when you think that you were somebody and then you come to think that you're less than, and you want to go backward to the time when you were more than. So any kind of major backward looking identity like that is a problem. So I think that is step number one. And then step number two, your middle section of your body politic. This is hard to talk about because we have some, very specific divisions of government. So we have the people, and I'm going to put the people at the bottom instead of the top to understand this org chart a little bit. We have Congress. We have two houses of Congress, House of Representatives and the Senate. So we tend to shorten that all to Congress, the two houses of Congress. We have the executive branch, basically the president and his cabinet, and then we have the judicial branch. And for the sake of this org chart, I'm going to put the judicial branch below the president, so that we have two extremes. We've got the schlubs at the bottom, and we've got the focus of power on top. And when your middle branches of government, whatever they are, and so I'm trying to say this so that people from other countries who have different systems can kind of figure out what the equivalent would be in your systems, because I have no idea. So when the middle branches fail, that's your system of checks and balances. When you don't have a checks and balances system anymore, and you've got the bottom and an overrepresentative top, where the power becomes centralized in the executive branch, you have the political ingredient for a Hitler or some type of dictator, because this is the primary job of these other two branches, to keep that executive branch checked. When it's not functional, executive branch runs rampant. One more element I want to throw in here is the oligarchs. All right. So the oligarchs, for anyone listening, and that sounds like a big word. Here's how I understand oligarchy. First of all, every country, every nation has an oligarchy. It's the rich people who really, their purse strings control the show. Even when there is proper government, oligarchs own some part of your government. They just do. In our case, there are no oligarchs like tech oligarchs. But they have somewhat become aligned more closely with the executive branch. And again, they don't get checked. So you've got an out of control executive branch. You've got all of the money that controls all of the industry in your company. It's your country. It's almost as powerful as the executive branch controlling every aspect of the military without the Congress being a part of it. So it's almost like that, but it's bad, almost worse. So you've got a concentration of power at the top. You've got an out of control oligarchy that gets pretty much whatever they want. You've got a middle section that is non-functional and does not do their job. And you've got a growing dissatisfaction with the way things are, and you want to go back to an earlier period of time where you can puff up your identity so that you can be once again the thing that you think of as great. The last thing that has to happen, and it's a thing that happens very naturally when you have all of those things, you identify the thing or things, the elements that are making you less great. And you know who it never is? It's never the executive branch. They were great all along. It's never the oligarchy. So they're part of the solution, not a part of the problem. So it's always going to be something or someone in the population. In Hitler's time, it was the Jews that were keeping the Germans from being great. But you could go back to any kind of dictatorship and you will be able to fairly easily, I think, figure out who the group was, the elements were that were getting the blame for them not being great. We have a very conservative Christian run country. I would almost throw them in with the oligarchs. And so people who are anti-evangelical Christian can be identified as the government's enemy. Family. You remember when family was strong? You know who's anti-family? Gay people. Trans people. Just all of the people who are considered less than great. Immigrants. And especially a certain type of immigrants. Black immigrants. Black people in general. So all of these little groups that can be identified as not great making groups become the enemy. It doesn't take very many more turns of the wheel to start getting Holocaust-like activities. We almost saw a little bit of it with the whole ICE immigration thing. That really got way out of hand. But I don't want to go much further than that. I just wanted to share some of these ideas of how Germany found themselves with a Hitler. Because you ask yourself, along the way, didn't anyone say no? Mm. And so if you want a kind of a real time how you get there, just look at America, for the last 8-10 years. This is how you get there. This is how you get there. Already we are at this place where sitting presidents get gold statues. And sane people are wondering, how did we get here? Play back the last 20 minutes of my monologue. This is how you get here.
Yeah. And the UK is following your leads, I'm afraid. We've got a dissatisfied population. Everybody is blaming the immigrant for stealing all their money. And it's like, seriously, guys, just step back a little bit. And the most needy, the most underprivileged people in our population are not the ones at fault here. Please get some fucking perspective.
They are incapable of dragging your country down. It's not sensible. It's not, they have no power.
Yeah. But it's all their fault. Yeah.
Do me a favor, Matt. Just educate me a little bit, because once again, I only deal with real countries, so I don't know what happens with what's your country over there? Anyway, I don't know what happens there. Who in your country right now, who is alive today and in power, is the most likely candidate to have a gold statue of themselves erected?
I don't even want to say his name. People know who I mean, and it's not Boris Johnson with the messy set of hair. It's a
Yeah, but what
racist
a statue
shit
that would have
turd.
been.
Yeah, yeah, it would have looked like Sonic the Hedgehog. No, the person I'm thinking of is a racist shit turd who likes to have pictures of himself drinking beer, and I do not want to say his name, but everybody knows who I'm talking about. He is the one, and it will be the ugliest statue. And do you know what? If he did have a statue of himself, gold or not, built in the UK, it would be defaced within a day with paint and rotten fruit and stuff. We are great at doing that kind of thing in the UK, but we also have a huge amount of influential voting public who are racist.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I think that the Trump statue will be defaced. Um, it probably has a lot of military protection around it, but I suspect that it will be defaced at some point, and this is just my wild ass guess. I think that when that happens, it's going to be called an act of treason,
Hmm.
and I think that it would actually be something that is up for the death penalty.
Wow.
Even
I
now, I believe that that is a set of events that is not only possible but likely to happen.
wow. Wow. The most perfect thing somebody could do to that statue would find a safe place with a long line of sight, get a high-powered rifle and shoot its right ear off.
Nope, nope, nope. Okay, now some would call that making it more realistic. I get that, but nope. we're,
That would be such a beautiful
we,
thing to do to that
we
statue.
cannot. Nope. We will not be defacing the gold statue with a rifle. That reminds me too much of the end of Trump one term, where when they stormed the Capitol, many of the protesters. I mean, the cameras, the TV cameras, live TV cameras, are close enough to film them. They had
Was
uh,
it hang pence or something like that?
yes,
They had the
they
gallows,
had
yeah.
that nooses and such to hang the sitting vice president in effigy.
Yeah.
Um, and once again, you just wonder, how does that happen? Even that, because people can be crazy. These are not government officials, but these are people acting on behalf of their favorite government official. And the moment Trump regains power, all of those people just get pardoned because he
Yeah.
wanted them to hang Mike Pence.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just
Yeah.
how do you
And
get
yeah.
Trump one the end of the term, and then people decide, yeah, a second go round of this would be good.
And let's not forget there was a genuine life-threatening attack on political elites with a hammer, and there was a genuine fatal attack on your political representatives with somebody impersonating a police officer and shot someone.
Oh yeah. So there was so much of that. I remember, I just vaguely, I don't remember the names of the circumstances, but one of the a female congresswoman, a sitting female congresswoman, um, people had found her address, and they were, coming to her house. A husband of one was killed because he happened to be home in that January 6th attack. Their main motive, they were looking for the Congress people. They were trying to get the Congress people. The Congress people were evacuated in time, but that's what they were going for. Um. So yeah, these are the times that we live in. I know that um, this is not the air that I breathe. It's not the air that I like to breathe. I focus on religious stuff, but it can't be separated. It's like technology. I'm a tech guy, but that can't be separated
No.
either. These were domains that used to kind of sort of exist in their own space, and you didn't have to cross pollinate, so much. But right now, religion is politics, and none of this that's happening that we're talking about happens without some kind of religious context. And so, a few years ago, I think somewhere in Trump one, back when Tara was still running wild on the board, I just, I used to have a policy. Yeah, we're not doing politics. It's not a political board. And then it became apparent that it actually has to somewhat become a political board. And I've talked about some of this stuff way more than I wanted to, but still not in as much as it needed to be discussed. And so it feels like our community is a little bit out of touch. But I suppose, I'm guessing that a lot of people in our community, you and me, and atheist YouTubers, Christian YouTubers, we're trying to keep some kind of wall of separation between the domains that is somewhat pointless, and at this point, it might even be harmful. We have to talk about this sometimes.
We do.
And I guess this is my time to open up about some of this stuff.
And I think it's important that we acknowledge that. So just for clarity, listeners, viewers, if I put the video up on YouTube as well, Dave and I are going to do this on a regular basis. It is going to be mostly about religion. There is going to be some irreverent humor in it. But right now, right this moment, in both of our nations and in other places across the globe, politics is quite genuinely a concern. And here in the UK, we've crossed a threshold where people in the UK, having looked at America and gone, thank fuck, my country's not like that, have now gone, oh fuck, my country's now like that. There is a political shift that is extremely rightward moving, and it leaves some people genuinely concerned for the safety of others. I don't want to give any specific information or detail, but I'm in a situation right now where I am aware of an asylum seeking family here in the UK who have sought asylum from a country that is a British protectorate. And they are in a very delicate situation. Currently, it's a mother and a teenage daughter who have been separated by our UK government by 500 miles because of a last minute decision by some fuckwit. And my wife and I are doing a little bit to help in that situation. Like I said, I'm not going to give any kind of specific details because it's a situation that makes me very angry. But this is the kind of politics we're in right now, where the most needy parts of our society are being actively hindered, and it feels racist to every bone in my body, and I am furious and I am angry about what's going on in this country, that the racists are running the show. And I am also scared about what the future might bring, because from all indications of history, this is not the worst it will get. And that angers and frightens me in equal measure, because I don't know what the future brings and I don't like what I'm afraid of. Sorry,
Yeah.
I made it personal there. But it's when we only really feel it when it affects us personally. And now it's affecting me personally, and I am genuinely really feeling it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what I think that's what drives all of this is when we feel it personally. I did not care, for instance, about uh, gay people in general back when that was the fight, uh, because I mean, not me. So
Yeah.
everybody's got troubles, brother. But you know, I know some gay people, and I got to know some gay people quite by accident. I mean, I wasn't seeking out gay people. I wasn't, going down the street and saying, "Are you gay? I need a gay friend."
Yeah.
This is not really how it happens. What you realize is that some of your friends, oh, they were gay and they were just in the closet. um, and I've got maybe a little bit more than that. In fact, I think I can. I think that I can probably say this, and if I can't, well, fuck it. I've got one of my oldest brothers gay and has been so for a long time. Um, and he has been out for sometimes, but sometimes it seems like, well, out sometimes, in sometimes. It depends on how well you know him. Then you know him, and if you don't know him, then he is very happy to let you think that he's not gay. So I mean, it's I don't think he is. Look. I understand all that. Okay, I get it. Um, no person is trying to, socially bury themselves. Uh, we're not seeking out um, persecution. Like some groups. I don't know a single gay person who wants to be persecuted. um, but so I've got some experience down that road. Is what I'm saying. And at some point, you realize, okay, the persecutors have it wrong. This idea, they're trying to paint this idea of a not insignificant part of the population as somehow the problem or some problem. Let me explain to you in a very brief way exactly the amount of problem that gay people are in society. Zero. Just zero. There is no societal issue caused by women loving women. In fact, when the camera is on and that beautiful intimate moment can be shared with, perverts, it's a good thing for society. Um, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying who might be a pervert on this call. I'm just saying it can relieve a lot of stress and tension. It's a beautiful thing. it's,
Oh,
it's it's a lovely thing, is all I'm saying.
I've got.
So
You're going to laugh at me for this, David. You so are. It's hilarious. I've been announcing it on Still Unbelievable for months that I'm planning to move house, and I tried to last year. I spent most of last year, 2025, trying to build up a backlog of episodes on Still Unbelievable so that I could queue them all up, and then I could do the house move without having to worry about episodes and do that. Anyway, as reality has happened, my entire backlog has been used up. I'm back to literally only a couple of weeks away from having to do episodes to make them live. I hate that stress. And my house move is only just starting to get underway. So all that effort, all those announcements, the last half of last year have just gone to shit. But anyway, that aside, this is the official announcement. I am actually moving house this summer, 2026. It's going to happen, maybe July time. That's what I'm earmarking for. But we will see. Keep listening, and I'll tell you more details as it happens. But anyway, we've had some progress this week, and it turns out that we're buying a masonette, which is a fancy word for a flat that's on two levels. And
so
the
like a townhouse.
yes, basically. But there is a ground floor flat stroke apartment, which is in the same building that we are. Because of the way the building and the ownership of the building works, we have some responsibility for the grounds that are technically owned by the ground floor flat. But anyway, technicalities that are not required for this podcast. Anyway, we found out in the past week that the tenants of the ground floor flat are a same-sex couple. And my wife said to me yesterday, she said, you know what? I'm actually really glad that it's a same-sex couple that we're going because we're going to have some kind of relationship with them. Not in that kind of way. Get your minds out the gutter, people. But we're going to have communicate with them on a regular basis because of the relationship between the two flats. So we're going to have to develop at the bare minimum, a friendly, non-antagonistic relationship with the people who own that flat. So anyway, it turns out it's a same-sex couple. And my wife says to me yesterday, she says, I'm actually glad it's a same-sex couple because they're going to be more chill than heterosexual couple, and it'll be easier to have a productive, constructive relationship with them. And I said to her, yes, I agree. There we go. Laugh away. That is now the way we view same-sex couples in this country. And I hope that any same-sex attracted people listening to this are encouraged and complimented by that.
Yeah, I've had the experience of knowing some same-sex couples, and frankly, it's so much more boring than you think. It's just a couple. That's just all it is. There's no
They
drama.
watch TV, listen to music, cook together. I mean, wow.
So I mean, the boogeyman is just not that scary. Let's hang these people. They watched Friends.
Yeah.
We can't have that.
No.
So I know that there are some things that you had on your list to talk about, but before we're done, you know me. Some religion has to come into play.
Yeah.
So I got I think small pieces and bigger pieces. So might this be a good time to insert one of the smaller pieces?
Yeah. Smaller pieces.
Let's try this. The idea that you think that I have a small anything is hilarious.
So long as it's golden, I don't care what size it is.
Just call me Midas, my friend. So I've been having this discussion on the board with a new person. I never know with something like a discussion board whether it's okay to mention the name or not. I mean, it's publicly happening on the board. It's
Skeptics and Seekers.squarespace.com. Is that still the URL?
It is, in fact, skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Log into your Discuss account and discuss away.
Oh, you see, I've got it's almost like I listen to your podcast every now and then.
I have no idea why you would do that.
I know what you're going to say. Why do I listen? I just read the title and go, yep, I know how this one's going to go.
I mean, you bring it upon yourself, sir. Other people don't know any better, all right? But you listening is like the Trump 2 voters. You knew what you were going to get, and you did it anyway.
You went and got it anyway.
So the discussion has been actually something that I had been thinking about for a long time, and I had a fairly brief private exchange with Dale. I think that, who knows, maybe we'll go public with it at some point. But the characteristics of God, you can pick any of the characteristics of God, any of his omnis, anything that we say this is a God thing, I contend is actually utterly contradictory. It's not paradoxical. It's contradictory. It cannot exist. It is the very proof that the God of the Bible cannot exist. And so the one that I am flogging these days is immortal. Mm-hmm. God is supposed to be immortal, but there's a problem. God can die. Because he died.
But only for 3 days. Come on.
Okay. I'm not giving him the 3 days. But even if it was 1 second.
2, depending on which version of the Bible you read.
Yeah, well, if you count the hours, it's maybe a little over a day and a half, but it doesn't matter. Before the weekend is over, it's, he's popped up again, as we count time. But the point is, if he can die, the very definition of immortal is can't die, so you can't have a can't die and can die in the same person. I mean, it's either he's immortal, God is immortal and can't die, never could die. Therefore, Jesus wasn't God. Jesus died, but God didn't. Or God is not immortal. He does have the possibility to die, and he died. Still God, he's just not immortal. There is a kind of a middle ground that is not sensible, but it plays into some of the other ideas as this goes along. When you look at other attributes of God, which is to say that, well, maybe God can just lay down any part of his nature that he wants to. So God has a nature, part of his nature is immortality, but he can lay down immortality. Now he's not immortal for a little while because he laid that down and he can pick it up again. Now I'm immortal again. So that itself is weird too. It's like when Jesus says, well, I don't know this or that. Well, God is omniscient. If Jesus is God, Jesus is omniscient, except when he lays down that part of his nature, now he's not omniscient anymore. And he can pick it up again anytime. Now I'm omniscient. At some point, it doesn't make any sense to say that God has a nature at all. Because at some point, we just get to God can't lie. Because that's a part of his nature. Except when he wants to lay it down, then he can lie. God can't do evil, except when he wants to lay that down, and then he can just fuck you up, and then he can pick up his good nature again. God is omnipresent. He's everywhere, except when he wants to be away from you, apart from you. Sin separates. So, I mean, I'll just lay down that part of my nature because I don't want to fuck with you. And then he picks it up again when he wants to be. You see how this works. So at some point, it becomes just utterly absurd to say that he has a nature at all, but just to stay focused, the little part, fool, you thought this was little, God is immortal who dies.
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
I've got a different question. If you've got multiple personality disorder and you kill one of those personalities, who's died?
I hate you so much. Okay. I thought that I had the level of hate that I had for you dialed in to precision, and now I've got to redo all the dials. So, believe it or not, I have considered the multiple personality idea. I am waiting for the interlocutor that I am having on the board. I'm going to pretend like he's a good, honest interlocutor. And so we'll see what the answer is. But part of the nuance that you can get into is, as a Christian, who died? Who do you say died? Was it the second person of the Trinity, the Logos? Did the Logos, the eternal Son of God, did he die? Or was it a new person that was created that we call Jesus, who is an additive part of the second person of the Trinity? And then the Jesus part died, but the second person of the Trinity didn't die. And then the Jesus part rose and is now somehow additively attached to the second person of the Trinity. So what do you think? Who died?
And it was only his body, his spirit didn't die. He was off having an NDE somewhere, and then he got a new
Well,
body
he was in
back.
hell. He was in hell preaching to the saints in hell. The grave. So
yeah,
who
which bit
who
died? So it
died?
wasn't even an entire death. It was just a shell death.
Well, right. So he takes a human suit, pretends to wear it, takes the human suit off.
Yeah.
He's still fine, and then he puts the human suit back on.
Yeah.
Is he still wearing the human suit in heaven?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're having some trouble with this. I see. This is not a thought that you are used to. Let
No,
me
it's
just
not.
throw in.
I'm just thinking, when the racists go to heaven and they see that the human suit is brown, not gleaming white with long flowing blonde hair. Sorry, so that's where my mind has just gone. It's probably not where you expected it to go, but that's where my mind went.
Let's see. Let me adjust that hate dial one more notch. Okay. All right. I think I've got it dialed in now. Okay. So let me close this thought out. Since it has clearly blown your mind, let me just take
Yeah.
the last little one for
I'm so
those.
glad you weren't asking me these questions when I was an actual believer, because that would have been a problem. Now I'm just laughing at the absurdity of the whole thing, because there is no way to put it down that does not read as incoherent.
Right. So let me give you one more. And I'd love to hear back from some of the people. If you thought about this when you were Christians, what do you think? So this last one is a little bit nuanced, I admit, and maybe a little bit speculative. I'm not sure. It depends on how you were taught. So in the Old Testament, when Jacob fought with the angel, um, this is one of those places where the angel is written in Hebrew as the Lord, capital Lord. And there's this idea that whenever you see the Lord, that it's actually Jesus, or maybe the Holy Spirit, but it's some version of God incarnating there, um, as the Lord versus Lord, just a generic angel kind of thing. But that said, I don't care whether you think it was the Lord, second or third person of the Trinity, or an angel, just some divine spirit being from heaven. My question is, when you have these guys, another example would be the two angels that went to Sodom and Gomorrah and were sheltered in Lot's house. When you have these heavenly beings come to earth, they're putting on flesh bodies, assuming that they go back to heaven, they're taking off flesh bodies. Is that a resurrection? Is that a death? Do they die when they leave earth and go back to heaven because they've sloughed off the fake flesh body? No one talks like that. No one thinks like that. So is that all Jesus did? Was just kind of incarnate, put on a flesh body, take off a flesh body, put on a flesh body? Or is there in some way some kind of, death? And for a bonus one, because I know you don't have an answer for that one, why did the Holy Spirit need to impregnate Mary? Okay, so understand, if you think that Jesus is the second person of the Trinity, he already exists. Why do we have the Holy Spirit involved at all? Does the Holy Spirit go and
Have
slurp
you
up
not seen
Jesus?
Ghostbusters? That's what all spirits do.
Okay, so the Holy Spirit comes to earth. He has this machine that sucks down second person of the Trinity, and then he reverses the vacuum and shoves it in Mary, which seems dumb. Even if you have some kind of picture like that, why do we need the Holy Spirit here to do it? Jesus can incarnate on his own. He doesn't need the Holy Spirit involved. Why does the Holy Spirit need to come upon Mary? Just leave those words alone. They're in the Bible. Why does the Holy Spirit need to be involved in this transaction? It's not his seed. It's not even his quote unquote spirit that's going in Mary. It's Jesus. So did Jesus stop existing as the spirit person in heaven and then get shoved into Mary? Or is this some separate seed from the Holy Spirit, which is not the second person of Jesus, who then takes on human form? What the hell is going on? This is so unexplored. It's so unexplained
Yeah.
as to be
Well,
utterly absurd.
they had to avoid the time travel dilemma of Jesus being his own father. So it has to be the Holy Spirit.
Let me see. Hate dial. Okay, just a little bit, little nudge right there.
We're going to be accused of not taking this seriously enough, David.
Okay. I'm taking it as seriously as I can possibly take it. In fact, more seriously. So, people, when you write in with your answers and, while you're cursing me as an antichrist, uh, do please include the detail of when Jesus was on earth as a flesh thing, was he also in heaven as a spirit thing? Kind of two places at once.
That was what
Um,
he sacrificed. You know, this whole big thing about sacrifice is permanent. It was a permanent sacrifice of his human flesh suit.
it was okay. So, anyway, that's me being short on Theological Corner. Okay. It doesn't get any shorter than that. Um, but
No,
I'm laying
is
this.
this a Skeptics and Seekers Sunday sermon shorts? Is that what this is?
No, I'm not going to go for 2 hours. What are you? What are you nuts? Look, when I first started the shorts, the goal was 3 to 5 minutes. A 5 minute short
Yeah,
was like
I
that
can't
was going to
remember
be
the last
really
5 minute
long.
one you did.
I can't remember getting out of the intro before 5 minutes. So by the time I read the title of the post, 10 minutes has passed.
Yeah.
But that said, there you go, folks. You've got uh, all the elements of that particular argument of immortal versus mortal, that contradiction. We're probably not going to actually get there in the conversation that I'm having with the person on the board, but if you kind of
Interesting.
want to see all of the steps that will spool out over time, there's a quick list of them. Uh, Matt, it's your topic, and if you think
The,
that's the only theological topic I brought, you are high in
no.
junk, sir.
Well, I I did want to show a book that I've been reading because one of the things I did last year, 2025, was I read more books in 2025 and interviewed more authors than I have in any year so far, was still unbelievable. This year is going to be fewer than last year, but anyway, that's the point. But there is one book I read last year. We're going to get to that because I've not interviewed the author about it, so I wanted to flag that up here. But before we get to that, because that's going to be another serious theological discussion, let's go to something light-hearted. David, did I tell you that I'd done some ancestry DNA testing?
Um,
No, I didn't.
I didn't know that you were going to publicly talk about the fact that it turns out you're half moose. But
I
if I mean if you're comfortable with it, I some of my best friends are half moose. So I
I
mean
tell you
you.
what, it makes for some very interesting hats when it comes to the winter. So my parents-in-law, they bought Sarah and myself DNA testing kits for ancestry for Christmas. So we did a whole spit in the tube and stir it up and shake it about and try not to contaminate it, send it off, and then
And then
waited a
see if it
couple of months.
turns pink
Yeah,
and
you know that all the thing, yeah, the
yeah.
big gender
Hmm.
reveal thing and all that. So we got our results back about 6 weeks ago now, and we've loaded them all up onto Ancestry, etc. And it says these are the people that you're related to, etc. I go down that first 10 people on the Ancestry list, and I'm like, don't know who they are, don't know who they are, don't know who they are. And out of literally the top 10 people, about one person I knew who they were, and nobody else I know who they are. So anyway, just to expand the story and expand the build up a little bit, my paternal grandfather, my dad's dad, we have no idea who his father is because he's the youngest of multiple siblings, and the father of all his older siblings died before he was born. So his mother, by the time he was born, was a single mother with about 6 or 7 children, and he came along 8 years after the previous youngest one. So we've always known that his father is unknown. And I thought that maybe this process would connect me through DNA to other people and might actually be able to work out who my paternal great grandfather is. I thought it'd be an interesting exercise. Okay, it won't really achieve anything metaphysically, but at least it's knowledge that we can plug into the family tree and just know something. So I'm thinking maybe some of these people match. And I get a message from one of them before I've even had a chance to absorb this list. And he basically says to me, "Hello, Matthew. I'm wondering why we're connected as second cousins on ancestry. I have no idea who you are. Apart from my immediate family, you're my next closest relative according to DNA. Who the fuck are you? And I'm thinking, okay, this is interesting. This is a hit. Maybe I'm getting the answer sooner than I expect. Anyway, long story short, it turns out that this guy is not connected on my father's side at all. He's connected on my mother's side. And I'm like, okay, this is a bit more interesting because my mother is an only child. She comes from a very highly religious family. Her father is one of two siblings. We know who their father is. One of those siblings, so my grandfather's sister, she was a missionary in Zambia. And yes, that is how I ended up growing up in Zambia because of that missionary connection. I've got second cousins who are still connected to missionary work in Zambia. So that's the kind of picture of my mum's side of my family. And my mum's mum, I think, is a third of four siblings. And again, very religious family. So I'm thinking, okay, this doesn't really make any sense how you come from a mum's side of the family and can be so closely connected because I know who all those people are. We've got quite a close connection, unless it's from one of my grandmother's siblings, but the name didn't work out. So we do some investigation and do some work, and he gives some names to me of potential relatives, and we can't work it out. And eventually, his daughter says, "Hang on a minute. Back in 1914, your great grandmother lived 2 streets away from my great great grandfather, or something like that." And that's the kind of the connection we've made. We've worked out that my mum's mum, so my great grandmother on my paternal side, was lived a couple of streets away from one of this guy's relatives. And that's the only way we're connected. So we do some more filling. And anyway, long story short, my mum's mum, the third of four siblings, is not the daughter of the man who everybody thinks was her father.
Huh.
And this is the highly religious Christian side of my family, the side of the family that spawned missionaries and everything. Now, for context, we're talking 1914. This is the year that World War One started. And when we look at the history and look at the movements, there are some odd events happening in that family, including relocation to Scotland for a couple of years and then relocation back to the Birmingham area, which is where they lived. So there are some definitely odd things. And I had a long chat with my brother about it. My brother said, "Did Grandma ever know?" And I said, "I don't know. I wish my mum was still alive so I could have this conversation with her." Because it's hilarious from me being one generation removed from all of this, but it is a scandal. It is a scandal for that period of time. It is a scandal for 1914 for a woman with two children to have a third child from somebody who is not her husband. This is scandalous. We know this. And yet it's the religious side of the family that spawned this mystery. And I'm not bothered by it. If I was a Christian, I might still have been bothered by it. Somebody who knows my family very well, when I first told them this news, said to me quite bluntly, I said, "I'm sorry, but there's no way on this earth that your wonderful grandmother, who was a deeply godly woman and from the family that she came from, there is no way that she is the product of an illicit affair." And I'm like, I'm sorry, the DNA doesn't really lie here. So that's my
I,
fun story of the day, David. I'm sorry I didn't make it as funny as you might have liked me to have made it, but
no,
that's my
no,
experience of the last 6 weeks.
that is okay. I feel like I need a full disclosure moment here.
Okay.
Full
Can I just say
disclosure.
before you carry on, I just like to answer because there is an obvious potential cloud hanging over
Yeah.
this, and this is about consent.
Right.
Because
Well,
there is a
I was going to ask you some things about it, so I wasn't
yeah,
going to change the subject
yeah.
at
So
all.
there is a
No.
possibility here that this was a non-consensual interaction. I have
Yeah.
no idea whatsoever. My only hope is that she had fun doing whatever happened that spawned my grandmother. I hope she had fun. It would be distressing to me if it was a result of a non-consensual interaction, but I have no idea of what the facts are. I just hope she had fun. Right,
Yeah.
carry on.
All right. So, I don't know a lot of people personally who've done the whole ancestry thing. I know that this is something that's usually done by Mormons
Yeah,
deep down somewhere because religiously the ancestry matters to them
yeah.
in a way that it doesn't matter to other religions. And so, for those of you who are wondering why things like 23andMe exists, it probably goes back to Mormonism. So that's a little fun fact for you. But so the disclosure that I wanted to give before I ask the question so that people understand, I've never been remotely curious about my ancestry. If someone gave me a kit, I doubt I would use it. Um,
Hmm.
so honestly, don't give me a kit. 'Cause I don't care. I actually kind of buy into the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation between any people on Earth. So at some point, we're all related to Kevin Bacon.
Hallelujah.
So I at in especially where I come from in the South, and black person in the South, it's very easy to predict that I come from some version of the slave trade.
Hmm.
But then you've got to ask, well, but how did the people who were sold in Africa to white slavers get to Africa? Were they born there? Were they? Because Africa, had been conquered by, the last 100 people who visited. So I mean, when you've got a world as ours where there are conquistador um, factions, kind of like ours, Matt, where we have expanded and colonized by force a lot of Christianity. So you go into some of these parts of the world, um, and you think that, okay, well, that's my pure ancestry. There's no pure ancestry. I think the closest thing to pure ancestry is when you get to maybe China, some of the older places out there. I'm not sure, but any place that has ever been conquered by some other place, it all becomes kind of circular. I think at some
Hmm.
point. So I mean, you and I are probably long lost brothers, not without as many degrees of separation as you think. And then there is, I'm just going to use the word because I know it's nasty, but I don't want to cede the language completely to political correctness. So trigger alert: rape culture in uh, our ancestry is rampant. And so you alluded to a possibility,
Hmm.
but in my background, it's a definite. It's not a possibility. It's simply how a lot of us were spawned. It's
Yeah.
just a fact, because slave culture is rape culture.
Hmm.
You can't separate those two things out. So when you're walking around in the South, your assumption should be that the person you're talking to, whatever color they are a much closer ancestor to you than you think.
Hmm.
So my assumption is just why I don't feel the need for a test. It's not going to tell me more than we can intuitively assume because we know history.
Hmm.
In your case, it may not quite work that way, but I would still say that your connections and ties with some king or other, it's not speculative. It's almost certain.
Yeah.
Someone
It's
like
just a case
Genghis
of how,
Khan.
yeah, it's like how
It,
many, it's not a case of am I? It's a case of how many generations am I?
yep. Um, that's
Yeah.
ancestry, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have the Mormon need to know the specific ancestry. That's not important to me. And so when I think about what the kind of DNA test could tell me, there's nothing that it could tell me that would be surprising to me. It's
Hmm.
also there's also nothing that it's going to tell me that's going to help me pay my mortgage
No, no,
next month,
no.
and so I've just not had that curiosity, but I'm also one of those people whose direct ancestry is so fucked up that there's nothing that a test can tell me that would be remotely interesting or surprising at all. So that said, when you find that, oh, also I've been in the church forever.
Yeah,
So if you talk about uh, people having children out of wedlock, whether it was consensual or non-consensual, you know that there is a certain percentage of that among religious people,
yeah.
especially in the bad old days where it was so male dominated that women were still little more than slaves,
Hmm.
um, religiously. So that said, you have learned something that for me, I've just always assumed. What do you feel about that? Because you must feel something. For me, I never had the naivete so that something like that would surprise me. I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm just saying
Hmm.
that wouldn't surprise me. It would surprise me if it wasn't the case.
Yeah.
What does it feel like to find out though that you are not of exactly the line that you thought you were?
I'll be brutally honest. It it is a non-event in that kind of grand scheme of things because it doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change the personality that I am. It doesn't change the character I have, and it doesn't change any of the values that I see around me. It doesn't change the people that I love who are my family, who are alive around me. So it doesn't change any of that. Well, it obviously has a change in terms of the information that I have available to me. How does it change me emotionally? My first response was, "Oh, this is great! I've got a mystery to solve. I've got something to talk about part of my family which I just thought was average and boring." So there's certainly an excitement and a wow, this is great kind of thing about it. Sitting with it longer, certainly if I was still a Christian, it would bother me an awful lot more. Maybe even maybe even feel a bit scandalized by the shock of it. But I don't feel any of that. And of course, that person that I whose comment I referred to earlier, they are Christian and knows the Christian heritage of that side of my family. And their initial response was a bit of scandalized. Sorry, I refuse to believe that that happened to that individual in your family. This person who knew my maternal grandmother and knew her as a wonderful, gentle, kind, godly woman, the kind of typical person of that generation you'd expect to see in the UK. So they found that quite scandalizing for her. It doesn't change how I feel about that grandmother. That grandmother is still a wonderful grandmother to me. I still cherish all the memories I have of it. It hasn't changed any of that one single bit because it didn't change as far as I'm aware, never changed her personality, never changed her character. So none of what really matters has changed. Now that I've sat on it for about 6 weeks, it's like I do wonder what the story is there. Clearly there is a story there. The world politics was going to shit. Doesn't it always? In 1914, her father-in-law, her husband's father, sorry, yeah, one of her husband's parents had died. I can't remember which one now, whether it was mother or father, had died a few months, about 9 months before my grandma was born. So I'm wondering if that's a clue to what was going on. So there is clearly a story there, and if you wanted to collect the facts of what happened about the family movements, about who was alive, who died, about world politics, there is probably a reasonably realistic narrative that you could create from those facts. And I find that part of it intellectually fascinating, but I'm not really emotionally engaged with that from a horrific point of view. I do find it, as now that I'm atheist, I do find it ironically hilarious that it's the Christian side of my family that this happened to, the most Christian side of my family this happened to. There is a atheistic glee, if I'm allowed to use that phrase, that I get from this. And I kind of enjoy telling it as though it's, oh wow, look at this horrible thing that happened to the Christians in my family. There is a little bit of me that gets a glee from telling it like that. But there is a more serious side on this family, and this is there are two other people involved in this story who are alive today. One is the gentleman that originally contacted me. He didn't know who his father was. And this connection to me has helped him to confirm his suspicions on who his father was. We've joined the dots, and he is now more confident in the person who he thought his father was, because until this point, until he connected with me, he didn't know for certain with who his father was. He was fairly sure he knew, but he needed something more. And this connection to me via DNA has helped him to improve the certainty he has for who, the confidence he has rather, for who he thinks his father was. And then there's a third person that's connected to both of us, somebody who is adopted. And that individual has connected to us through DNA. This person is adopted, has waited till their adoptive parents have died, and has now started looking at who their family heritage is. And that has connected this individual to myself and this other person who connected to me. So the three of us together have connected, and we've drawn a little bit of a family tree to who we think the people we are connected to. And again, that has helped this original person who contacted me to confirm who he thinks his father is. And so for him, this has been a really critical and important step. For him, this has been emotional because it's validated the hard work that he and his daughter have done to try to track who his real father is. And for him, I'm happy. For him, I'm emotionally, contentedly relieved because it's done something very real and very emotional for that individual. So in the bigger picture things, I don't actually give a fuck about the story and the scandal in my family because it doesn't change anything for me, but it does change something for somebody else who needed answers and was emotionally connected to those answers.
If you're out there, your ancestry is very important to you. Leave a comment. I'd love to know. I'd love to hear your story. I guess this is one part of humanity that I guess I'm disconnected from. I mean, my experience in the church, very conservative evangelical church, for most of the time of my growing up, there have always been teens and preteens turning up pregnant. Always. Sometimes it's the elder's daughter or the elder's son. Sometimes, very scandally, is mixed race. Because the thing that defeats racism is the sex drive. Because the sex drive knows no racism. It's especially among guys, but it's also true among women. When your hormones are going, you will fuck a duck. All right. I'm just, you know what? There's no racial barrier that can defeat human hormones. I'm just going to say that right now.
Damn it, David. Why are you doing this to me on a Sunday morning? Shit.
I'm just saying. And so the idea of mixed race relationships being somehow new and scandalous, even in the South, that's a story as old as time, bro. And it's old as time in the church. It's always existed. And the South has had laws on the books. We still might, that make mixed race relationships illegal. But from the time of slavery, women slaves were sex slaves. Bruh, what do you think they were? And it wasn't black people owning black women. You know, they were lucky if they could get some of that. That's so the mixture, the genetic mixture in the South means that you are very likely closely related to anybody you happen to see, white, black, or duck. You are very closely related to that person. It should never surprise you of whatever connection you have, because we are all products of cousining. Every one of us is just part of our thing. And so for me, emotionally, the emotional ties that I've had have been less to my biological family, which I have ties to. Don't get me wrong, I'm still human, but always equally much, or if not more, to the one or two close friends that I considered family. And for me, just considering someone family is equally as valid as whatever blood runs through your veins. And if you just randomly consider someone family in the South, you're probably right anyway. so, I've been one of those people who I guess never felt the whatever emotional truth comes with blood is thicker than water. Um, it's never been thicker than water for me. It's all water, and it's
Yeah,
all blood.
I get you. I understand you. So as David said, this will be up on the Reason Press YouTube channel, link in the show notes if you're watching it anywhere else. And comment in the comments under the YouTube down there. Yeah, if I put this video up, I don't know what I'll do. But yeah, if you've got a story about this, if you've got experience in this, put some comments down. Connected to this whole DNA thing, David, one of the features of the Ancestry DNA is you get a list of traits. I think it's about 97 traits, and it tells you whether you're more or less likely to connect with one of these traits. So I've done a 20-minute video as we're talking today on Sunday the 10th. It's going live at some point this afternoon if it's not live already. So by the time you're listening to this, it'll be live already. If you want to chuckle, go and watch that video. I've done a 20-minute video of me going through all of these traits and scoring them on a yes, no, it's complicated. And basically the headline spoiler is it's about a 50% hit rate, 60% I think hit rate on the traits. So far lower than you might think in
So,
terms of
what
the
kind of traits?
accuracy.
Give me an example of some of the traits you're
Some of the
thinking about.
traits, whether I'm more or less likely to drink a lot of coffee, whether my index finger is longer than my ring finger, whether I have dimples in my cheeks, whether I'm likely to get an alcohol blush if I drink alcohol, whether I'm left foot dominant or right foot dominant, a whole variety of things like that. Some are subjective, some are a little bit more objective, attached earlobes kind of thing. I've got my headphones on, so you can't cheat by looking at this video. Go and watch the
Oh, wait a
other
minute. Those are
video.
headphones?
Oh, fuck off, you
Okay.
bastards. So, yeah, and hilariously, one of them is whether or not I'm a follower of fashion, which is
Okay. I don't understand two of the ones you mentioned. The last one, obviously, I don't know what genetics can tell you that, and I don't know what genetics can tell you whether you're going to be a coffee drinker or not. How is that really? Is our DNA so full of junk that
that you can
that our
they
preference for
apparent
coffee can be there?
yeah, I the metrics is clearly people who report liking lots of coffee have these kinds of indicators in their day, and then they follow up in a it's something like that. Again, if you know these things, please comment in the video below or go and find my original video and comment in that one. It would be really fascinating to have somebody who knows how these things work to put some comments. I really would appreciate it. Yeah, who knew that apparently they could, but both the coffee one and the fashion one from memory, I think, were wrong anyway, which is just double funny.
Well,
But
maybe they
there we
weren't
go.
wrong. Maybe you're in self-denial. Okay.
Clearly, I avoid coffee despite drinking it, and I follow fashion despite not following fashion.
Just
Yeah.
embrace the pink tutu, okay?
Oh
You
man,
know that you've been looking at it in the store every time you pass it. Stop denying yourself.
it's not pink, it's salmon. Please get your
Okay.
colours right.
Okay. In other words, pink. Um,
Salmon!
so,
God's sake!
like, I spent a lot of time in the Northwest. I've eaten a lot of salmon. Hey, people, it's pink.
So yeah,
Just
that was funny and it was amusing, and yeah, go and have fun. So yeah,
let's
DNA.
let's try one more. If you got time.
I've got
Uh,
plenty. I've got a list.
okay,
I've got time to go through the whole list,
great.
David.
Then okay. Don't say this to a man who does a 5-hour podcast. Okay, don't. You don't want to mess with me. All right,
Oh
don't try me.
yeah, well, this is getting better, listeners. Come on, stay tuned. Keep up. Go on, Dave. Well, go
Actually,
on.
it's not going to get better. It's just going to get longer. But
Is it longer is better, isn't it?
in my economy, yeah, it requires more gold. But that's that said, this is a combination of politics and religion.
He's
I guess in
taking
some
it.
ways, everything is a combination of politics and religion, but it's also been on my mind a lot, as it's been on everybody's mind who has half a brain. I've thought more about Islam uh, lately than I will say ever
I am not
have.
wearing a hijab for you, David. I don't care
Look,
how much you beg.
the fashion doesn't lie. Okay. That said, I don't think I'm aware of a pink
I do have the
hijab.
right hairstyle for one, though.
I'm gonna walk away. Um, you actually have more hair than me right now. Because I recently shaved, and when I shave, I just do the whole head.
Oh, I
I,
bought a new head shaver actually, a Remington Zimmy thing, so I can
is it good?
shave.
Because my head shaver sucks. I'll be honest with
It,
you. It takes a lot of time. I gotta scrub all the way down to the brain to
the
get the
number
hair
of
off.
plastic attachments for different lengths of hair I might want is far more than I'm ever going to need. I don't know why I needed a completely separate box full of all the different hair length attachments that I might want. I just stuck it on one of the lowest ones and zap it over. My biggest problem with it, because it works mostly effectively, although issues around the ears and the back of my head because sight lines and things like that. So I need to get used to it for working that around. The biggest issue is what do I do with the droppings? You know, the couple of times I've used it, I've actually stepped outside into the garden and done it there, but that's probably the wrong solution long term. So I need to come up with a location in the house where it's safe to do this.
I think we have
So,
a
but
language barrier situation here. You see, in our country, you know, where people speak English, um, droppings indicate some kind of poop discharge from animals. Um, and you're saying that when you shave your head, there are droppings.
yeah, that might have been intentional.
Okay, all right. I'm going to leave it there. Also, you're doing it
Obvious
wrong.
jokes in the comments below. Yeah.
You're doing attachments on your shaver. Wrong. What you do is you get a shaver that's mostly all blade, very dangerous, and you put no attachments on it, and then you scrub your head with that.
I value
That's
my looks far too much, David.
it is not apparent at the at.
Bastard.
I mean, look. It may be one of those deep down soul kind of things where you.
That's
But
why I've got
anyway,
my camera on and you haven't.
I no, I don't. So that'd be very clear. When I can get away with not putting my camera on, that's great. In fact, I don't even have a camera, not even a webcam hooked up to this computer. I don't want a camera accidentally on. Thank you very much. Um, I like podcasting wearing what I wear or don't wear. So
To them, is it golden?
is how could it not be, sir? How could it not be?
Salmon
Um,
and it's salmon and gold stripes, isn't it?
I love gold. So the Muslims.
Yeah, the Muslims, our favourite religious people. They're the nice ones, aren't they? Is that right? I
So
keep getting my
here's the
religions
thing.
mixed
I
up.
don't know which religion I despise more: Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. They're all bad. They have all been bad for the world. Um, in different ways, they're all currently bad for the world. Christianity may be the least bad at the moment. It's older than Islam, so give Islam some time, and they will come out of their crazy fundamentalist phase too at some point. But there are always two truths about Islam. It's extremely violent and bad for the world, and it's extremely peaceful and good for the world. These two truths live in tension because you have more than one kind of Islam. And what I think you have mostly in the world, by a lot, are moderate Islam, moderate Muslims, maybe even progressive Muslims, and people who are in very conservative countries who are also secretly progressive Muslims. The average Islamist is not fitting their child for a bomb suit. We've got to get that image out of our head. It's simply not the case. The average Islamist has as much concern about the price of a gallon of milk as I do. They have as much concern about, am I going to have a job next week? Am I going to pay my mortgage or rent? Am I going to get clothes on the kids? How am I going to help them with this calculus homework that I have no idea what what to do with? They have exactly the same human concerns in a modern world as you do, and they're probably not thinking about their religion. I'm mentioning this because I'm one of the people when I was younger who only could conceive of Islam as those bad people over there. I looked at Muslims the way white people in the South looked at black people. And I can tell you this is strictly because of religion. This is a religious bigotry of mine. It's not the region of the world they're from, because Israel was in the region of the world, and those people were good. It wasn't race, because Israel, Muslims are the same race, only maybe slightly lighter than me. So it wasn't politics, because I wasn't as attuned to world politics anyway. It was strictly on a religious basis, and so I have followed my own progress from religious bigotry to not religious bigotry. But the reason it's important today is because we are currently fighting a war against Islam. And I'm not really sure how to think of that, because I don't think that we're fighting a war against some Muslims or some Muslim countries.
Do you think
I think
Muslims
we are
make that distinction? Oh, it's not our country. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Right. I think, though, from our perspective, from the U.S. perspective, I think we're fighting a war against Islam. That's what it feels like to me. I don't. On the one hand, so I'm divided on this. Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. I shouldn't go quite that far, maybe, but Hezbollah, all of these Islamic factions, and even some sovereign countries that have just been very bad for the world. There's a part of me that says, yeah, let's go ahead and clean that out.
Yeah,
I felt like that for a long time. If what you are is the place where you have schools for terrorism, you shouldn't be allowed to be a country. So, just on that basis, your whole system exists to create chaos in the world. So let's embrace our own chaos and remove you. That's one part of my mind. The other part, though, has to do with the Israel Muslim religious divide. Because as an American, I'm supposed to be a Christian. As a Christian, I'm supposed to be for Israel no matter what. Even as a Christian, I was not for Israel. Which is weird, because I've also never thought of myself as anti-Semitic. I mean, Israel was great. We're allies. But from a religious perspective, from my religious perspective, you guys rejected God. I'm no part of you. You're no part of me. I have no reason to root for you. I have no reason to think that you have a right to any particular land. Israel has never possessed the land that God promised. Never. They've never come close to possessing the land that God has promised. They are never going to come close to possessing the land that God has promised. It would require some kind of major world war and reorganization. It really would be an end of the world event for them to even try to possess the land once you understand how much land we're talking about. In fact, the most common estimate is they currently possess about 1/30th of the land that they're supposed to possess. It's not going to happen. And also, as a more mature person now, the idea that you are entitled to some land because God gave it to you? What are we doing? What kind of fantasy world are we living in where we put the stability of the world on the back of a fantasy story that God said you could have it, so you could have it? We had Hedseth saying at one point about the land when this war first started that he would be okay if they took it all. Our highest politicians talk like this. I think, what the fuck is wrong with you? What is wrong? Do you even know what that means? To say that aloud. So I come around to, I think, a point, which is I understand why Islamists and Islamist countries are mad. When I was a Christian, I could never allow myself to understand that. Right? I understand it. Now, granted, it's all, on the back of stupid religion. Okay, awful religion. Every one of them pox on all their houses. Religion is the thing that will bring us to another world war. But I understand their perspective a lot better. And I do not believe that Israel is necessarily in the right. I do believe that maybe they were the last people who, when the attacks from a couple of years ago, attacking Israel in that music festival and taking hostages, yeah, that was bad. I get it, though. I definitely get it. This is exactly the kind of thing that in the Bible Israel was getting up to. This is the history that they embrace. This is how they do things there. That, in fact, that attack would have been the mildest of weak sauce in Bible times.
Yeah.
So if we look at the Bible and see how Israel supposedly treated their neighbors,
yeah,
it was monstrous. And so we just have a real world picture of what that could have mildly looked like. And from the Islamist perspective, it's been going on for a long time, and it was actually Israel who was the aggressor. And I would have to say, maybe historically, certainly biblically, Israel is the aggressor. Do they want to wipe out Israel? Yeah. But did Israel want to wipe out them? Yep. So it's not like, right. It's not like that either of them have the moral high ground here. Should there be an Islamist state? Well, I think in a way that we have artificially given Israel a kind of a theocracy state. I think it's perfectly in the same line of righteousness that Islam have a state, and they should have the support of the world to do that too. If we care about religious freedom and autonomy. So I think it's a very geopolitical, complicated thing. From a religious perspective, the Jews are terribly wrong. But from a perspective of in the world, where are we going to put our efforts? And if we're going to be adjudicating this, what do we consider fair?
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm with
there,
you
there
on.
should be an Islamic State, and I also think that that would actually cut down on some of the, the violence of these religions. I don't think that that would create more violence and instability of the world. I think it would create less because Israel became better citizens of the world when we helped them get their state. Why did we help? Religion. So why don't we help today the other side? Religion. We in the West don't want to see a strong Islamic State. And I don't think that there are good geopolitical reasons for that.
Yeah, I lack the well, all the essential knowledge to be able to talk with any kind of authority uh, on this. But I'm pretty much with you on everything you said there, David. I don't know how, in today's modern political climate, we can justify preferencing one religious state over another, regardless of how we feel about how each of those religions behave towards each other and towards their subjects. Preferencing one over the other, but de facto creates a stressful conflict situation, which is going to eventually end in disaster, or will never end. It will just skip from one disaster to the other. But on the biblical subject, modern politics aside, when your nation has as part of its birthing story forcing people off their land so that you can take what you have predetermined is going to be yours, and then you continue to honour and use that backstory as justification for maintaining your existing borders. Once you have that as your narrative, you have made yourself the aggressor to all of your neighbours, and they will only ever see you as an aggressor no matter how peaceful you try to be. And you are creating a de facto conflict zone there. So it is hardly a surprise that what we've got is a de facto conflict zone, because Israel's backstory creates it for themselves. You just need to read the Bible to see that. That doesn't justify a lot or any of the atrocities that have gone on in living memory, but it does set a justifiable context and backstory for how those happen. But regardless, I am deeply, deeply dismayed by calls for the world to step in on this conflict. I'm deeply dismayed by America's enthusiastic stepping in here. It saddens me deeply. 9/11 was only 25 years ago. And do people in your politics not have any kind of memory at all? You are creating an environment where the perpetrators of 9/11 in 2001 are being birthed and indoctrinated now to hate America, to create another 9/11. Are you really so blind that you can't see that?
Yeah, I think one of the worst things in modern memory, this will also be controversial, was Trump's statement a few weeks ago when there was the first deadline, I think, over the Strait of Hormuz, and he publicly commented on Truth Social, I want to say, um, that uh, in 24 hours, um, the the population is going to uh,
Yeah, I think I
be
know what you're talking
obliterated.
about. Yeah.
We're going to destroy the culture in a way that it is never going to come back. Um, what he was using
This absolutely
was
was
the language
inflammatory
of
language.
genocide,
Yes, it
and
was.
I will not. I personally will not tolerate any calling it anything else because it soft pedals
Yeah, it
It's
was
soft pedals. Well,
genocidal
it was
language. It absolutely
it was
was.
genocidal intent and language, and he was looking forward to it with
Yeah.
glee. You look at a golden statue and you say, "Is that normal now?"
Mm,
Actually, the thing that I think will go down in history for me in this whole period is, oh, we can threaten genocide now.
mm,
All the way straight up biblical genocide. And we're like, well, that was bad, but okay,
mm.
I guess. Um, what are we doing as a human race
Yeah.
right now? And why are we feeding people um, who are like this our praise and laud and honor? You know, even if you're politically conservative, you don't have to be a genocidal maniac.
Mm.
There are other. You don't have to support this guy. You don't have to support this administration. You can still be a crazy conservative and also not be a shitbag.
Yeah.
But it seems like we can't distinguish anymore between just political opinions and directions and utter shitbaggery. And this is worse than shitbaggery for me. The threat of genocide, the way he made it, is almost itself a war crime.
Yeah.
Um, I I don't know who we are as a country when we just let that pass with the news cycle, and it colors everything that I thought about the conflict in the past and how I going forward will think about it. Because we can say Islamists, they want to wipe out Israel, but Israel over history has wanted to wipe out Islam, and now America, because it's said by our president, wants to wipe out Islam. They will not forget it. We Americans will forget it. They will never forget it.
No.
They will continue to work on briefcase nukes or whatever it takes. They are never going to forget this. And when they attack one day, we will have ourselves to blame because they will look at this time period and say, America, you know, you claim to be good people. You didn't do anything about this.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything about this. You celebrated it, you supported it, and now Ali Ali Akbar, you're dead.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Violence
Okay.
begats violence, and the repercussions to what's going on. I dread the news day when those things happen because they're happening. There are people planning their revenge already, and something is going to happen long term. They'll spend years, maybe even decades planning it, but there will be a retribution to pay for this. And I dread those headlines already, but they will happen.
Yeah, and the thing is, we will have forgotten about it.
Yeah.
We will we won't have any idea why they're mad
Yeah.
because we don't care enough for this to impact how we
Yeah.
think and behave and move forward. It's just another episode of our national sitcom.
Yeah. I'd like to draw a comparison between what's happening now and what happened in Germany post World War II. Because what happened in Germany, again, I don't know all the politics, and if you're an expert and you can describe it succinctly, please weigh in on the comments below. It would be really nice to have some education on this. But when you actually look at what we did to Germany after we annihilated Germany after World War II, is we went in there and we rebuilt the country. We rebuilt businesses, we rebuilt infrastructure, we got involved, made friends with them, and now look at Germany today. Germany is a great nation that we look to for technology. They produce the best cars in the world right now. And so we look to them for that kind of thing. Or maybe Japan builds the best cars in the world. But then again, we helped Japan as well after the war. and we built relationship, and we built friendships, and we built infrastructure, and we worked with to make the country great again that way. And we're not doing that in the Middle East. Maybe because their skin's the wrong colour. I don't know. But if we actually worked with them to help make their countries better, we solve two problems. One, they stop hating us. And two, we get fewer asylum-seeking refugees because the country is a country worth staying in without fear.
Well, in all fairness,
Maybe
Trump
I'm
did.
naive, but let's at least try that.
Trump, he did suggest annexing, some of the land over there, and make it a resort.
Another
really
golf
build it
course,
up.
eh?
Yeah, just
You're
gotta
running
take
out
it.
of wives to bury. Is that the problem?
So, I mean, Trump, in all fairness, he's offered to annex a number of lands. Wasn't Iceland the latest one? We'll just take it.
Greenland, yeah.
Greenland. Yeah, we'll just take it. It seems nice. We could take it. We're already over there. Let's just take it.
Yeah. And then he got stood up to, and then we haven't heard another thing again. That's the thing. Trump is being roundly mocked by the British press. Any kind of political commentator is absolutely mocking him. The way he handled Greenland was hilarious, and he got roundly mocked for it. The way he handled whatever fight he had with people in Scandinavia, that was completely and utterly mocked. The way he's handled is it open again or is it closed again? Is it still open? Who's got the control of it? The Strait of Hormuz. Trump's strategy is being seen what it really is here in Europe, and everybody is laughing at him. And the more he does, the more he cocks up, the more we laugh. He is absolutely the laughing stock of the world, and more Americans need to know that.
Well, okay. You're not going to be laughing, though, when he renames it the Strait of Americas. Okay, so
the American channel between England and France. Say, go on, dare you, Trumpety. Come on, give it a go.
I guess, look, it seems like we're focusing on this stuff a lot. This is stuff that has happened since the last time Matt and I talked.
Yes.
Okay, this is just the kind of stuff that keeps happening.
The sad thing is, David, let's imagine that we do this monthly for the next 2 years. I can't imagine a scenario where we don't talk about Trump on one of those episodes. We're going to talk about him every single time.
Some new stuff.
Because some shit fuckery is going to come up and we're going to laugh at it or despair at it or cry about it or talk about it. It's going to happen every single one of these fucking episodes that we do, David, and I hate you for it already.
Yeah, I hate myself. I think about where this all could end, and honestly,
you've had 2 tries already. Come on, guys, get it together.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I say that out loud? That was a joke. That was a joke, all right? Lawyers, that was a joke.
Not a joke. Here's the thing.
Meant it really.
And this guy lives in Britain. I think that we will be rearranging your flag soon. You thought we were allies. Yeah, I hope everything goes okay. People hear me doomsaying, and they might think that I have some chaotic doomsday glee like Christians, but I don't. I hope this ends okay. But just like Trump's last term ended in a direct assault on American foundations, I'm at the point of speculating now, will Trump leave office at the end of his term?
Yeah, that was a question I had at the back of my mind to ask you. Do you honestly think that he will try to extend his tenure?
Yes. Yes, I think there's almost no chance that he won't try. So it's just a matter of whether anyone has enough political and moral will, because we've already shat on the Constitution many times. I mentioned in kind of the run up and talking about this that our middle government that does the checks and balances has checked out. And so we're going to have to win way more seats in our Congress to the other side, whether you like the other side or not. This is one of those things where I don't even care what they stand for. If we don't have enough to put some checks on the out of control executive branch, absolutely he'll try it. And he might make it.
Do you think he's got anybody in his advisory circle who knows the Constitution well enough to tell him the facts?
Yeah, the Constitution isn't that hard to know. It's hard to care about, I guess. But yeah, they know it. The real question is, are they good enough lawyers to argue a case that is completely non-constitutional and make it stick? And they have been a lot of the times, but they're, a bright ray of hope is that when Trump started unilaterally assigning tariffs, which, by the way, is not a part of the presidential power. I don't know whether you knew that or not. The Supreme Court, Trump's court, actually ruled against the tariffs as these are illegal. Well, everybody knows they were illegal.
That's gone a bit quiet now. So has he learned his lesson on that? Or is
no. But this is a part of how far degraded we are and how much our middle government isn't working. Everyone knew they were illegal at the time. If you've got the level of education of, say, a high school civics teacher, the 8th grade, and if you were, roughly decent student, then you could have known, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. The president doesn't have that kind of power. Turns out he doesn't. Everybody knows it. But the thing is, all of our Congress critters just did nothing. This is what I mean about a non-functional middle government.
Right.
They knew it was illegal. They knew he couldn't do it. They knew that all they had to do was step up and stop it. Within their power to do it, none of them had the spine to do it. So it got to the court.
Is there conformity? Okay, so my reading of your situation is the Republicans who know better but are keeping their mouth shut are doing it because their job is on the line.
Yeah, they fear the totalitarian dictator.
Or the voting
and they should,
public.
Because he does have enough power to make them disappear and maybe never work in politics again. He actually does have that power. So that's why they fear it. And that's, by the way, that's how you get a Hitler. Because at some point, enough people fear the power that he has amassed that their wealth can go away, their status can go away. Right. And so the only viable option at a certain point is to support the dictator. That's the only viable option. And in our politics, for the last several years, that has been the only viable the only viable option for Republicans. Wow. That has been the case. This is why we've practically had no Congress during this separate term. This is how the proof of that is these tariffs were allowed to go through and exist for as long as they have until challenged in court. And even the Trump court has to show some signs of giving a damn about the Constitution. And they just said, okay, this is just constitutionally wrong. There's no wiggle room here. The tariffs are illegal. You got to give the money back. And why it came to the courts, once again, we'll never know. It never needed to go to the courts because Congress at the time could have said, you can't do that.
They're too cowardly. What do you think is going to happen in the midterms?
I don't know. I've lost the ability to prognosticate politically. Okay. In the face of this kind of, it's not just a shift of power to the executive branch. It's not just a cult of personality. When you get that kind of power focused on the executive branch, and it has been there for long enough, all political prognostication goes out of the window because you're not working on a system that is predictable. It's not like however the system worked 10 years ago. It's very, very different. And so, I don't know. I don't know. I'm looking for signs of life. Okay. And I don't want to say Democrats are the answer for everything. Democrats are simply the answer because they're not Republicans. And at the moment, and that's a very bad thing to be too. But at the moment, you need people who can make Congress work again. And for that, you need opposition control of Congress. So no matter what side you're on, if it was a Democrat doing this in the White House, my advice would be you're going to have to hold your nose and vote Republican. You need checks and balances because without checks and balances, you have a dictator. Um, so I don't know. The obvious thing to do would be to vote balances back into Congress. But the people who have power today are conservative Christians. Are they known for balance? Is that what you is that what you think? you know, no, they don't think that at all. They read their Bible stories and they see God ordering the specific targeting of babies suckling, who are nursing, and they say, "Amen, God." Do you think that those people, amening that, are thinking, "Yeah, what we need is some democratic balance so that Congress can work again"? That's not what they're thinking. Not who they are. So I don't know. But for me, it would indicate a sign of life if we can firmly secure at least one of the houses. Firmly secure, not just barely enough majority. That's not enough.
No, it needs to be a whitewash swing in both houses to away from the Republicans, really.
Well, that's what it needs to be, but I would consider it a sign of life if we,
got one of them back.
grew a strong enough majority in one house to stop some of the madness.
Yeah. I have seen it on various social medias over the last 6 months, 8 months even, quite a few people expressing lots of Trump regret and going, time to go against him. Do you think that that's genuine, or do you think those are reaction farming?
I think it's partly genuine, but I think it's too late. I think that many of those people will vote for him again.
Ouch.
And the people that he puts up for vote again, because we had that after Trump won. He won bigger in Trump too. Okay, so there is something to be said for a person who holds the power of solvency over your head. So for many companies, for instance, in Trump too, it became virtually illegal to have a DEI policy in your company. Back in the day, we might have called that affirmative action. But DEI, in case anyone is confused about what that is, it stands for diversity, uh, uh, diversity, something, and inclusion. Diversity.
Ethnicity?
No, it's not ethnicity.
No.
Diversity.
No, I can't remember it either.
Maybe equality.
That sounds about right, doesn't it?
And in inclusion. So
if only we had a website we could just quickly go to check that while we're
yeah,
on.
no, I'm not doing that.
It's more fun to fuck it up and let someone get there in the comments, isn't it?
Somebody's got to fix it. But you get the idea. That's that is what DEI is, and almost every company had some kind of policy. Because, and the reason we have to focus on such policies is because we have had such a long history in this country of racism, of exclusion, and it's very, very hard for someone who is outside of the right race even to this day, to have the same rise to success. It's difficult. It's a different journey if you're black in America than it is if you're white in America. And so, yeah, we have had policies in place like that for a long time. We just recently started calling them DEI, but programs like that have existed forever. And this White House, this group of racist master racers, one of the first thing they did was say anybody with DEI policy, the government is not going to work with you. There will be no government contracts. We'll do things, your taxes. We're going to basically destroy you if you have DEI policies. And almost immediately, maybe a majority of the companies, it's hard to say, very publicly and quickly removed all DEI policies. One of the few companies that didn't was Apple. Their company is all about DEI. Mm. And this is the one place where Tim Cook was able to tell Trump, fuck yourself. Now, they didn't talk about it maybe as prominently, but they very famously did not make changes to their DEI policy, and almost every company that you can think of in your mind did. They just scrubbed it and said, okay, we're racist too. That is the power, though, when you have a president who accepts bribes openly, who has, when the policy of corruption door is open to the highest bidder, and they all want government contracts and government favors so that they can operate exactly the way this is, when there's no checks on oligarchs either. So you get oligarchs in alignment with the executive branch who has no checks and balances, and you can get immediate overturning of government safety nets and checks and balances like DEI programs. They just went away. Just poof. And all the countries lined up and said, okay, we're racist too now, so don't kill us. And you're asking me if people are going to really vote against Trump in the election. How much power is too much power before it's not possible to overturn it? Well, in the Hitler story, I don't know. I haven't studied it close enough to give you that answer. But in America, I think this is the closest to it we've ever come. And so we might find out how much power is too much power. We may already be there.
Yeah. What I found most bizarre was the fallout from the Jesus picture and the number of Christians who came out of the woodwork saying they were offended by that, to the point where Trump actually had to walk it back and say, no, really, it was a doctor. I was a doctor. The lying shitface. That was your line? An AI image?
That's how doctors look.
That was your line? All that crap that he did, the mocking of the disabled man, the grabbing the pussies, that I could shoot someone in downtown New York and they would still vote for me. All of that was fine. But a shitty AI image touching the forehead of a crap person, that was your line?
You got magical light coming out of your hand. Because my doctor, that's how he does it. He works. Yeah, he has the magical light, and then he touches me in just the right place.
That was what I found so bizarre about that. All the people who suddenly came out of the woodwork and said, that's enough, I'm offended by that.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, though. There's a certain offense that, if you're Christian culture, you have to have over some things. Every one of those people are going to vote for him again. That's in our country, and I imagine in all countries these days, that's just what we call a news cycle. All right. You can survive anything. All you got to do is get past the news cycle, which is really short. Nobody's talking about that picture now. Nobody gives a shit. They've forgotten about it. They're building golden statues of the guy. What are you talking about? So,
That, yes, those people who had the line then at the picture should be going apoplectic now.
right, but they're not because we forget it's just a news cycle, and in news cycles you have a permission to be outraged. You can't be too outraged, but you can be outraged, but then you got to let it go in 2 days. And they did.
Yeah,
So it's not a problem for Trump's presidency. But you can
yeah,
even point to polls that say he's got the lowest approval rate ever. When has approval rates had any predictive power over whether you're going to win the next election? It
yeah.
just doesn't. It's a low approval rating in the news cycle. But the next news cycle, Trump's going to drop a bomb on somebody that we hate, and then he's going to be God again.
Right. Okay, I'd
So,
like to change tack a little bit. Um go super religious, spiritual. When when Trump when this illness, whatever it is that he's got, eventually gets the better of him, and we all celebrate the death of Trump. How long do you think it will be before somebody sees an apparition of him?
oh, same day. I'm pretty sure they're seeing him now. So I am pretty sure that we already have Trump appearances. What are you talking about? Why we don't need to wait till he dies before he's got a golden statue in his lifetime, man. That that's something that you would. He's going to have a coin with his face on it. We've already talked.
Ooh,
That's a thing. I think later this year we're going to have a Trump coin. Um, so why are you thinking the apparitions will start when he dies? The miracles, I'm sure there are miracles now. So
ooh.
he's the going to be the first person who's alive to receive his sainting.
Oh, no, no, that one hurts. No, stop it.
Look, he can demand a Nobel Prize
Yeah,
and
but he
get
didn't
it.
get it though, did he?
Well, he can look. I know
Well,
this is very
FIFA
cynical.
gave him a human prize
Yeah,
thingy, didn't
that
it?
I'm
Fucking
quite
bribery.
sure that in secret he got exactly the prize he wanted. But lots of places have given him prizes. Even Apple's Tim Cook gave him a statue for nothing
Oh dear.
except as a way of stroking his ego to say, please exempt us from these ridiculous tariffs, kind sir. Here's a statue for your greatness. That's Apple.
Yeah.
It's the same company that stood firm on the DEI programs. No one has sucked his golden staff more than Apple uh, as a corporation. All right. And I've worked for Apple. Uh, I am generally quite favorable of the Tim Cook era. I understand many of the decisions he had to make, but the fact of the matter is, he didn't have to become Trump's crank gobbler to survive. I don't think he did. He thought he did,
Mm.
and so that's what it became. But yeah, so you've got people deifying him now. Have you already forgotten how the church, the evangelical church, was comparing him to King David? Maybe you
Yeah,
didn't know that,
I
but
did know
near
that.
the beginning of his
Yes.
term, he was
Yeah.
King David.
Yes.
You're asking me about the first miracles after he dies?
Okay. All right.
People are praying
Thank you.
to him now.
I fear that this is a subject we're going to return to. Can I move on?
Okay, okay.
Can I move you on?
Um,
I said that I read a lot of books in 2025 and interviewed authors. This is a book that I read, but I've not interviewed the authors for. There's been an issue and a hiccup, and I'm getting concerned that I'll never get to do this interview because I said a few negative things on my social media about this book. It's probably going to go, oh, look, it's probably the wrong way round on the recording. I don't know.
No, no,
And
it's good. It's God,
it's
the
called God, the
science.
Science, the Evidence. And if you look very
Mhm.
carefully under here, it says the uncorrected proof not for sale. So I've got the pre-published edition. The
Okay.
publisher sent me the pre-published edition. I don't know what the changes are. And I read it. I have got a lot of red markings and stuff on here. This book, David, I don't know if you've heard about this book. It's been really touted in across Europe. Its original edition was in French. I think it sold 400,000 copies in French. So they're really hoping that the English version will go global and go big. So they really, really did push this. Lots of interviews. I think even your friend Dale had these guys on his podcast, jumped on that quickly. Uh,
Mm.
I have not been very positive about this book on my social media. In fact, I've been very negative about this book on my social
Can you tell us who
media.
wrote it? I haven't heard of it.
It's two French guys. So Michael Yves Bollore, I've probably completely botched that,
No, I think
and
you nailed it.
Olivier Bonacius. They've also
Mhm.
been on the Unbelievable podcast and any Christian podcast there. I think one of them's been on the Sean McDowell podcast as well. So all the big podcasts and Still Unbelievable has been reached out and received for a couple of books. This book has a chapter in it. This is what I wanted to talk to you about, David, amongst the various things that it tries to achieve. This book has got a whole chapter dedicated to the miracle at Fatima.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Okay. So is that a part of the science or the evidence?
Yeah, they go through there's even photos from Fatima
Okay. Okay.
in the book. They they talk about the history and of the various predictions, etc. Because it was more than one prediction; it was multiple predictions, and all these crowds turned up, and they all claimed to have seen this prediction. Although that's not strictly true, there are many people who also claimed not to have seen anything. And then this is the real kicker: they include in the book the acknowledgement that observatories and other scientific institutions all came out and said they did not detect anything different. They did not detect, using any of their scientific equipment, anything that was out of the ordinary. It was a straightforward, normal day. And they use that fact compared with this testimony of people to declare that therefore it must have been a miracle that happened.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
That is the quality of argumentation in this book. The whole book
So
literally has that kind of quality level argumentation.
I've heard a lot about Fatima lately. So I don't know if this book is driving that. But one of the things that I've been confused about when I've heard people talking about, well, Christians talking about Fatima, uh, sometimes they seem to be using Fatima as evidence, and sometimes they seem to be uh, saying, "Yeah, no, maybe Fatima uh, wasn't real, but," and then to make some other
Mm.
point. So these people are using Fatima as a real thing. Are these Catholics or evangelicals?
I believe they're Catholic. They're French, so more likely to be Catholic. I believe they're of Catholic
Okay,
persuasion.
so okay, then that right. So I've heard evangelicals recently speak favorably of Fatima,
That's a
which I
shift.
found confusing,
Yeah, me
to
too.
say the least. So these are Catholics, so naturally they would be,
Pro Fatima.
uh,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah. So Fatima is this thing where people saw Mary
Yeah.
Marian,
Apparition of Mary in the
right,
sun, and the sun danced across the sky, and yeah, all
right,
sorts of
and
bullshit.
Mary in this vision, she moving?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes. But it was also it's called the miracle of the sun because the sun apparently moved, visually moved off where it was supposed to be in the sky.
right. So since you've read this chapter, maybe you can answer some Fatima questions about for me, because I've always had some Fatima questions as someone who's not Catholic. Um, why? What? I mean, if you're a non-believer, what is?
Mm.
No, forget that. That's the harder exercise. If you're a believer, is are you really thinking, you know what would add to my faith? If I saw a vision of a woman in the sky. Um, because the way I was trained to think, that just sounds stupid.
Yeah.
You've got the all powerful God of the universe, and he wants to give some kind of proof. The, and so he comes up with, what if I put a picture of a woman or in the sky?
Mm.
I'm like, hang on. It seems like there were some other things that maybe could have, if this was workshopped just a little bit longer, like all cancer had went into remission that day.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Keep the cancer. Just keep. Don't take away cancer. I know you love cancer, but for that day, every doctor reported cancer went into remission. Every case of cancer goes into remission that day. Now that's interesting.
That's a miracle I could get behind.
That is really weird. For one day, everybody, all Bibles, went to the original language, whatever the original language was,
That would
and
be
we were able to
hilarious.
read it. We were able to read it that day, where His word was so clear. Your Zondervan NIV suddenly became Greek, Hebrew, and Chaldean, and you could read it. One day only.
Mm.
Let's do that. Um, for one day, the whatever mountain in the region literally picked itself up and moved about 30 feet in a different direction and sat itself down for one day. What the fuck? I'm getting baptized 3 times. All right. But instead, what we get is, how about an image of a woman that nobody has actually seen, so we don't know what it looks like? They'll never know whether it was an angel, a demon. That is, they will never know. Not everybody reports the same thing. Let's do that one.
Yeah.
That just seems like such a trivial thing. If God is thinking, we gotta build up the PR, we gotta build up the faith of the believers. You imagine all the things he skipped over before saying, "Yeah, woman in the sky."
Yeah. Yeah. I think what is so attractive about the whole Fatima thing is because of the way it built up. It was, and again, it's always children. It was a small number of children, about 13, maybe not even that old. And they made a prediction. They said they'd seen Mary, and they made a prediction that on this particular day, Mary would appear. And they turned up, and lo and behold, allegedly, there was this apparition. And then they made another prediction, and a few more people turned up and saw it. And so the thing built up in sequence with multiple predictions. I think the big event everybody talks about was the culmination of it all, which was the fourth or the fifth. I can't remember exactly the details. But it was a build up, and it reads just like a story of a lie, children playing, because that's what children do, got completely out of hand, and they couldn't backtrack because of the momentum that this thing built up really quickly. And that kind of thing can happen in a rural environment where people are a little bit more literal and don't think critically. So I think that's the attractiveness of the story, because if you are going to believe it, hey, these kids predicted something, it came true. They predicted it again, it came true again. They predicted again, it got true again. And everybody that came along, and by the time it got to the last one, it was thousands of people. And you look at the photos, and it looks like thousands of people. So it's hard to deny that. And allegedly, all these people claim to have seen the same thing. I mean, when you actually get down into the nitty gritty of the facts, it's not quite so cut and dried. But that aside, that's what it seems. All these thousands of people turned up, and what was predicted weeks in advance came true. So I think that's the base attraction of this, and which makes the miracle at Fatima stand out from most of these other apparitions, which are all spur of the moment and not
So
repeated.
how do evangelicals
Because it's a
fight?
miracle, and I think evangelicals are addicted to miracles, and this
Right, but
is so
they don't.
weird it falls under miracle category. So
Most
therefore, they
evangelicals don't believe in, you know, believe that Mary is some kind of deified being, though.
no. I
And so
wonder if
it's
they hook onto the sun thing and the sun moving in the sky rather than the Mary thing.
right. So I'm just thinking this is a very Catholic specific
Yeah, but then
miracle.
the Shroud of Turin is also a very Catholic specific thing. But evangelicals have latched onto that in recent years and are now running with it for bizarre reasons.
Yeah, but I think this is even more Catholic specific because
Fair
only
enough. Yeah,
only Catholics deify Mary.
yeah.
So, for instance, we don't have an appearance of Jesus.
I know.
That
Isn't
would
that
that would
weird?
be something more
Yeah,
universal.
yeah,
Uh, so we get Mary, and as an evangelical, one of my things is why Mary?
yeah.
Who's Mary? She's not even his real mother. what are we what are we doing? So why not Elisha? Why not Moses? Someone that would be very universal, but instead we get Mary, which is something that uh, everyone except a Catholic would say there's no way that Mary would be the one presented in the sky as the proof of God.
Yeah. Imagine what would have happened if somebody had bought Jesus an Ancestry DNA kit. That would have been a fucker, wouldn't it?
Well, so imagine if they had bought DNA kits in Jerusalem after Jesus uh, died, and then they found a bunch of Jesus DNA in people. Now that would be worth talking about.
Yeah.
So okay, that's a Marian. There's a fancier word for that, but that's the Marian aberration.
Apparition, yeah.
It doesn't really make sense to me, but
It
it
doesn't
is
belong
an
in a book
interest.
that's called God, the Science, the Evidence. It
Right.
just
Well,
doesn't meet the category for me.
it's an interesting thing that one set of Christians would think of that as evidence. And me, I would say if it happened, I would put that in the category of evidence. Maybe not good evidence, but
Mm.
evidence. Evangelicals don't put that in the category of evidence. They will reject that, but then look at, a couple of Bible stories out of passages and think of that as evidence. And so it becomes kind of a, well, what is evidence to you? They're always asking us, what
Yeah.
do we count as evidence? What do you count as evidence?
I
Because
count evidence.
why aren't you
Yeah.
Catholic?
Yeah. Why didn't this book convert me? Well, see, for me, whenever I'm asked that question, I always say what it is less important. What it needs to be is replicable and testable. And if I can't replicate it and I can't test it, then you have no right to call it evidence.
Right. And I think I would have been even more impressed with it. I mean, I say that after the fact. If people all over the world individually said, "Look, I was eating dinner, and Mary
Mm.
uh, apparated in my kitchen, and she helped me with the shakshuka I was making, and she sat down and ate with me." One person saying that would be meaningless.
Mm.
A billion people saying that, uh, that's a different thing.
That's a
That would
weird
have been
thing because
interesting.
Mary can't be in multiple places at once, can she?
Well, yeah, but I mean, she's got the heavenly body now. I
Yeah.
mean, she can walk
Yeah.
through walls. What are you
How
talking
does that
about?
even work if you don't have multiple personalities? Sorry,
Look,
different question.
okay. So, tell me, what are some of the other evidences, if you can talk about them?
That was the one
Uh,
that really got me the most.
I
Uh,
mean, that's science. Is that what they're really? Okay.
yeah.
Anyway,
Well, fine tuning, because fine tuning is apparently evidence. What
fine.
else is there?
Okay.
Biology, the incredible leap from inert to living matter. So again, the other one, when did life start?
This is not
There's
even
there's
interesting.
So
This
these are the
is
kinds of things they talk. They've got one chapter dedicated to quotes from scientists. It literally lists 100 quotes from scientists. There you go. You should believe all these people. So perfect for cherry picking.
Yeah.
And then they go the alleged errors in the Bible, which are not errors because apparently that's scientific
Okay,
evidence.
stop. No, I gotta stop you with that one. If these are
No,
Catholics,
yeah, and then
why are they? Why do they even care about contradictions anyway? Catholics are not. Uh, what do you call them when they think that everything is perfect in the Bible? That's not what
yeah,
Catholics are.
they're not literalists, no, or whatever.
Literalists, yeah.
Inerrantists.
Inerrantists, yeah.
That's right.
Catholics aren't inerrantists as I understand it. So I don't even know why they would be talking about apparent contradictions. They can admit some contradictions and it wouldn't be a
Yeah.
problem for them.
And then they have a chapter on the critique of materialist arguments, and then they have a chapter on calling materialism an irrational belief. So two chapters on materialism,
Okay,
but
this is
critiquing
such
materialism, not actually using positive evidence for
yeah,
God. So
this
it's
is
all
ridiculous.
philosophy. The whole thing is your standard evangelical stroke Catholic philosophical arguments. It's William Lane Craig in a new dress. Basically, this book is
Yeah, I just did
in a
several weeks
pink
of
dress.
apologetics, my friend, and everything that you're talking about is stuff that I've been immersed in for a while. It's bad. It stinks. I did the shows, I did the write ups, and I'm pretty much done with that series. I got one more to go where the finale where I'm going to bring a few people in and we're going to rank the apologetics from least bad to worst,
Yeah,
and we're going to deal with also going to do the same with counter apologetics, uh, from
yeah,
worst to best
yeah.
counter apologetic. And this kind of stuff, this kind of Lee Strobel style stuff is, man, it wasn't even good when it was new.
Yeah,
So I don't
yeah.
want to say I'm not going to read the book
I don't recommend the
because
book.
the
I
summary
genuinely can't
sucks.
recommend it.
If there was something new in there, is there like a new argument worth?
No, no, no. There was nothing in it that jumped out to me going, "Oh, this is new."
Then what's the
Again,
point of the
it's
book?
months ago then that I read it.
Right, but
Uh,
what's the point of the book? I mean, from a Christian perspective, a Christian apologetics perspective, you've got bigger books, more popular books that cover the same ground.
fleecing the devout, and it's come from Europe, not America. When you go and look at the reviews of this book, all the standard Christian outlets all go, "Hey, this is a wonderful book compiling all of this good stuff together." When it actually gets to genuinely trained scientists who don't have a religious bias reviewing it, they're all a lot more cautious in their reviews. And that fact alone tells you all you need to know about this book.
Yeah, I've read a half a dozen of this kind of book. They're never good. They're never there's never anything new in there.
Yep.
And it's as you say, it does eventually come down to bad philosophy. Even when people start talking about scientific proofs, that still just
Mm.
comes down to bad philosophy at the end of the day. Um, so, was there any argument in the book that you felt like, okay, if we were doing a live discussion on this, I would need to bone up on blank, whatever blank
Fine
is.
tuning always comes under that kind of category because the fine tuning argument relies so much on how much we don't know about science, about how much we don't know about the beginning of the universe, or even if beginning of the universe is a phrase that's useful to use. And there is so much around that, and the apologetics arguments that hinge on that kind of fine tuning are just make hay from how much we don't know. And it purely is, it just boils down to science hasn't explained this, therefore God is a justifiable proposition to insert here, and they expect us to take that seriously. So that is the one where you need, if you're going to have any kind of argument, any kind of talk about that, you need to spend days gelling up on what the science of this, of the universe, of the parameters of the universe, of gravity and speed of light, and all that kind of nonsense. you really need to spend several days gelling up on what those things are, what we actually do know, and what various scientists say, because there are a lot of different scientific ideas, some of which are taken more seriously than others, and they're all at various stages of being investigated. And apologetics just throws a blanket over the whole lot and says, science can't explain this, therefore God. And so and you really need to have a good grasping of what science does and doesn't say to be able to attack that successfully. And it's really hard because science doesn't know enough yet about what is behind everything that we know.
Okay, so yeah, I disagree. So
Fine,
finally,
you're still wrong, but you're
right?
happy.
No, but so the way I attack fine tuning is it has nothing to do with the science. Because I don't think the fine tuning argument has anything to do with the science.
No, it doesn't.
It's it's Christianity putting on a lab coat, making you think that they give a damn about science, but they don't. And so I don't argue the fine tuning based on the scientific claims. I can grant them all. Fine tuning. In fact, under naturalism, I can't imagine beings like us in a universe this size and this old being possible without the various parameters being what they are. So all you're saying in fine tuning is the parameters are what they are so that the universe can be what it is. So that you've said nothing. So you can spend all the time you want talking about how specific aspects of the universe are, or if you can label them on dials, this is what that particular dial is set on. It has to be set on this in order to get breathable oxygen. Fantastic. But the fact is, we have creatures who breathe oxygen, and I can't imagine, if we're going to do an I can't imagine argument, any universe that formed any other way that we could be here. So that maybe this is just the way universes have to be for creatures like us in it. You haven't said anything. So where I would normally go with the fine tuning argument is, well, I guess we can stay on science a little bit. It seems counterintuitive to me. In fact, the very first time I heard the fine tuning argument, it felt counterintuitive to me because I come from the perspective of a 6-day creationist. So this is why a lot of creationists don't argue fine tuning, because fine tuning requires billions of years of evolution, right?
No, God could just do that, and it's there, right? Perfect.
If you don't come from that background, you don't expect a 14 billion year old fine tuned universe. That is, in fact, not what you expect. No. What you should expect is poof, and there are people. Yeah. That's what you should expect. And so when we look at people and we look at our environment in the universe and say, no, actually what we find is that there were billions of years of fine-tuned evolution. That's not the story that the Bible tells us. It's very much opposed to the story. In fact, it seems very wasteful. I thought that God just said, let there be light, and there was light. That's it. That is your process. God called up humans not from particles from exploding stars. He called up humans from the dust of the earth. Fuck your fine tuning. Let me tell you how humans really came about. God looked at a patch of mud and said, now you got a human, shut up. So from the perspective of a young earth creationist, fine tuning sounds like nonsense. Yeah. That sounds more like atheism than it does Christianity. But so we can look at that in different ways and come to very different conclusions, pretending like the science matters. Yeah. If we stop pretending like the science matters, though, the one question that I ask that seems to always derail fine-tuning arguments is, fine-tuned for what? So there's a point here. So I'm going to get
I know the point, and it's a good question.
Yeah. So uh, so fine tuned for what? Is it fine tuned for exactly the moment we have right now? The moment. So you and I are talking on this podcast, and if the big had banged any other way, one atom difference, you and I would not be talking on this podcast right now, even if we existed. So was it fine tuned for this moment? In order to get to this moment, do you know how much rape and disease and murder and slavery had to happen to get us to this moment? And so you would have to say that everything that led to this moment was also fine tuned. It's not because humans sinned, it's because God fine tuned it to work out this way. And so the Christian has to either admit that that's something that God also wrapped into it, or he has to say, well, it was fine tuned just for creatures like us to come about. And then, we took over with our sin and so forth. Okay, are you sure about that? Because if that's the case, then we could have stopped Jesus from being betrayed. Because Judas didn't have to happen. Oh, but Judas did have to happen, didn't
Yes.
he? We can't get a Christian story without Judas happening. Do you know how much had to happen, required to happen, to get to the Judas? So you can't walk away with it was sin. It was fine tuned that Judas has to happen. At some point, as you walk down this road and you talk about cancer, because this is pre-human. We found dinosaur bones with cancer. So God fine-tuned the universe to present cancer in living creatures pre-sin. So as we talk about this stuff more, what the Christian will say, and this will happen in every fine-tuning conversation that lasts long enough, they will say, well, look, God created the universe perfectly, but because of sin, it destroyed the universe, and we have the universe of decay that we have now. And so then I say, then how do you know that anything was fine-tuned, since the universe we have right now, that we can see in our scopes in our labs, is not the one he created? This isn't the universe he created then. This isn't the universe he fine-tuned. This isn't how it was supposed to turn out. And so then the fine-tuned perfect universe that was sinless and without decay, that just becomes an imaginary thing that they have in their head that they just say ad hoc. Yeah, but the universe was that way, and that's what God fine-tuned. But okay, what about today? Do you have any evidence of the universe today being fine-tuned? Well, maybe not, and you're done. You're done. Because at the end of the day, the fine-tuning argument has nothing to do with science. It has nothing to do with philosophy either. It is strictly theological. And the theology does not support fine-tuning no matter how you stack it. And so it's just a matter of knowing how to argue it and get to the places where it is. And me, I've never had much of a problem with that because, like I said, I was a young earth creationist. Yeah. So I could have argued against fine-tuning as a Christian. And did.
I think that's a good strategy to take, David. Rather than tolerate Christians stepping into the realm of science, we should push back and fight them on their ground, make them uncomfortable in theology.
Yep.
I think
fine-tuning makes actually a lot of good sense on naturalist ground. It makes zero sense on Christian ground. This is just one of those examples where they're trying to, not be dismissed from intellectual discourse. And the moment you start talking about science, you have granted some things in their argument that you don't need to grant. You don't need to grant. All you have to really do, you can skip even over the stuff that I said. I just gave you a process. The universe that we have right now, is that the one that God fine-tuned?
Yeah. And on the topic of that, if you want more of a fun dive into this topic, Justin Briley, former friend of the show, He's got his own podcast, Uncommon Ground, where he goes back to a little bit of an unbelievable style thing where he gets two people with slightly different takes to have a conversation. And in a recent episode, literally only a couple of weeks ago, episode with friend of the Still Unbelievable book, Philip Halper, Phil Halper as he's commonly known, or Skydive Phil, is in conversation with Stephen Meyer, the creationist liar, moderated by Justin. And they have a 3 hour ding dong on various things, and that includes fine tuning and other aspects relating to cosmology. It's an interesting looking show. Like I say, 3 hours if you've got the time. I'm obviously on Team Phil. Phil did spectacularly in that episode. I was massively unimpressed by Stephen Meyer, but then I always am because I don't even respect him.
Well, I'm a little bit offended that someone would do a 3 hour show. I mean, that's a lot of time.
Justin did a 3 hour
Don't you
show. He had
don't you
those
care
guys for
about
three
your
hours,
listeners?
and it was live as well. He had, I mean, live as in uh, it wasn't across the internet. He had
I
them
mean, I'm
there
just
together in the
saying
same room.
it's too long. Okay, you need to respect your listeners' time. Okay, we've only been going for about 2 hours and 56 minutes.
I know.
Um, so
And we're only halfway through our list, David. You
look,
know.
I look, Justin. I think the one thing about Unbelievable that I didn't like about the show, and it's the one thing that I wanted to change when I started doing shows, was the time limit. The clock became the enemy
Mm,
of a good argument.
yeah.
Because if you did have an argument that required a little bit more nuance, I mean, a lot of people have been on Unbelievable who felt like they didn't have time for their argument. And because the clock is somewhat controlled by Justin, completely
Mm,
controlled by Justin, some people might feel like, okay, well, Justin commented a lot and helped one side a lot. And so
mm,
they had more time to do their argument than the other person. All of that's true. I don't think it was malicious, but it's just true. It's a very hard clock to fight when you're trying to make
yeah.
an argument, and your opponent does have a chance to make an argument because he's not the only one making the argument.
Mm,
And so I'm actually glad to see Justin letting go of this capricious clock
yeah.
uh, idea and letting arguments go
Yes,
forward.
it is good. And I like that. I like that he's allowed that kind of free flow because I felt that with my own appearance on Unbelievable. Mike and I, when we had our conversation, we barely scratched the surface of his abomination of a book, and there was much more depth that I wanted to go into on that.
I'm sorry, you were on Unbelievable.
Apparently, I was. Yeah, three
When
years
did
ago now, I think it is.
what? How come I didn't know that?
Yes, you did, you liar.
I didn't know that. No. Who were you partnered with?
It was Mike, I can't remember the name. He wrote this book called Un. Oh, I've gone and packed it away now. It's in a box, but I've still got the book.
Oh, yes,
Un,
I think I remember now. Yes, yes,
un.
yes, yes. I remember.
It was a guy that said that the Bible reads like it's true, therefore it must be true.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. I
I
remember.
can't remember.
It was a disaster.
I think your
Uh,
quote to me about the book was, "You've read a lot of books on Christianity, and this one was the worst one of the lot."
yeah, it was bad. Yeah, no, I remember now.
And we did a
Man, I
show, we did a show commenting on it, and then we did a
yes, we
show
did.
responding to all the comments on the YouTube video.
Yeah, I remember the one of your lines that I was proudest of, and still almost remember. Now that I remember the show actually took place, but it was one that kind of came right out of my mind, but it was your mind, and I that's when I thought, yeah, you know that Matt, he's as clever as me. Um, and it was fast. It was very quick, but it was when he was saying like the genre of religious fiction didn't exist, and so they weren't really doing that, and so you were like you were very quick in saying something like, so therefore the um, Gilgamesh saga was then true. as
I think yes, I
right.
said something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can't
it was.
remember exactly what it was, but yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It was the moment, as far as I'm concerned, when the show is over. That was we were just done at that point. So congratulations on that. And yeah, that line was like, oh yeah, we're done.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in that show because I made reference that to my family having their own story of a tragedy being turned into a miracle, and because a few Christians who heard me talk about that did comment thoughtfully and respectfully about me on that, and said that that was a moment for them where they rethought their position. But I was half hoping, because I was very much anonymized on that. I just said it was in my family, and I was half hoping that Justin would ask a question about that, ask me to expand on that, ask me if there's anything more. But obviously, the whole what you said before about the time constraints, that is it. It is time constraints. You can only make references to things because if I'd been given an opportunity to expand on that, I think it could have quite significantly changed the tone of that conversation, and changed something quite significant about how that conversation went.
Honestly, I think he was drawn and quartered as it was. Um,
Mm.
it was first of all, it's just an extremely bad argument that he came in with.
It is.
Um, it was fundamentally, I'm just going to say it was a stupid argument.
Mm.
Um, and right, but that's the kind of stuff that Christians can say when they don't have to go toe to toe with an atheist with a half a brain. And you know, Christianity has owned the culture, many cultures, for so long that they are simply not used to sharp and immediate pushback.
Mm.
They're not used to it. They're not used to the internet and the speed at which the internet happens. The speed which an idea can be so thoroughly taken apart. They're used to just being able to say things
Mm.
and assume an amen, and because they're the only ones saying things.
Yeah.
So the internet has not been kind to Christianity. So you in your book, it sounds like a bunch of apologetics. I just finished a series on apologetics. So can I give you uh, one of my unique? I have two unique counter apologetics, and just run it by you.
Go on then. Go on then.
All
This will be
right.
fun.
Yeah. So and this counter apologetic works for everything. So it's not specific. In fact, I'll give you both of them because they're similar. One is the argument from doubt, and the other is the argument from bullshit. Um, so the argument from doubt is, in a nutshell, if God is real, it should be impossible to doubt him. Um, so that's the shortest version of the argument. If you ask yourself, how can you doubt? How could, for instance, Adam and Eve doubt? Now, he didn't so much speak to Eve, but he spoke directly to Adam.
Mm.
So Adam knows he exists. He may not know anything about him, but he knows he exists. You know, they talked. In fact, he did speak to Eve because when she was making her complaints, he was there. They talked. So it should be impossible that within Adam and Eve's lifetime, no matter how long it is, that they could have doubted the existence of God. Not possible. However, God goes for periods of hundreds of years sometimes without getting involved. And then people get all sinful and they don't know God. They know other gods because, there have been time for other gods. So Abraham, he talks to Abraham. Now, whether Abraham accepts God or not, he knows for sure that God exists. He's talking to him. Okay, and Abraham has a number of conversations and adventures with God. It should be impossible for Abraham to doubt. No matter how long he lives, it should be impossible. He gave Sarah a baby. He made Sarah mute, talked to Sarah. It should be impossible for Sarah not to know who God is. And so we can say that about certain people throughout the Bible. But because the reality is, in all times and places, there are people who simply didn't know God. God is not talking to them. He's not in. So what God is for most people throughout the Bible is a story, a half-remembered story that's been changed over hundreds of years, and that's their only knowledge of God. And yet, I contend that if God is real and active in their lives, they should have all known God. It should be impossible for the Jews who walked out of Egypt to immediately start worshiping a golden calf. It's just impossible. They just did God. God just opened up a sea. No sooner than they get over there, they're looking for a God.
Yeah.
It simply defies what humans are and what they do. The disciples of God, they all doubted God. Every last one of them. I know you're not used to thinking of it this way, but in Jesus' lifetime, they're walking with Jesus. They're raising dead people. Jesus dies. 10 minutes later, they don't remember shit. They don't remember. Hey, wait a minute, I was raising dead people like yesterday. Jesus says, I'm going to die. I'm going to rise. 3 days. Who was at the tomb waiting on him? Nobody. The women, when they went to the tomb, they didn't go to the tomb out of faithfulness. They were just trying to finish up the funereal rites. They see the guy and they don't think, oh, it's Jesus. He really did it. They think, nah, it's the gardener. They don't believe, so much do they not believe that even when they see him where they expect him, should have expected him to be, didn't believe it. That should be impossible. Guys on the road to Emmaus, I'm using some headcanon and saying that they walked with Jesus at some point because they knew a lot about Jesus. They're walking with Jesus now, don't recognize him. The 10 disciples, Jesus walks through a wall, says, I'm here. And they're like, oh, you really did rise. No, that's not what they said at all. They were afraid. They didn't know what was going on. Resurrection? What do you mean resurrection? Power? What power? Oh, yeah. And they've got to go through a demonstration. Nobody, my point, 0 people believed. They all doubted, which is a thing that shouldn't be possible if you're having a real encounter with a real God that you have walked with for, X number of times. Now you have William Lane Craig in the Sensus Divinitatis. You have the Holy Spirit dwelling within us. We have constant connection with God, and yet Christians, every prominent Christian, has a story of doubt. Gary Habermas, as he was going through his graduate degree and studying resurrection very academically, went through a period of doubt. How is that possible? The fact that you can be a Christian and can doubt suggests that there is not actually any God thing going on, because the only thing that you should be able to doubt are questionable human things, not once you've encountered the real God. Satan in heaven, in the bosom of Jesus, at some point walked away and said, God, what God? Power? What power? I can overcome that guy. It doesn't make sense, if you understand. And so that's a more spooled out version of the argument from doubt. I'll throw in the argument from bullshit because that one's way shorter. It's very simply this. It seems like bullshit. Okay. Right. And so in all of our experience as humans, all of the things that, our logic is based on, beginning things that we start with, dead people have this nasty habit of staying dead. All right. One fish, you can eat one fish and be fine. One fish does not become 40 fish, or 400 fish. Sounds like bullshit. The great resurrection, the zombie apocalypse of Matthew 27. Sounds like bullshit. And my point is, it's a kind of an intuitive argument. Every single claim of Christianity sounds like bullshit.
Yeah.
probably bullshit. But if we've got to start with our belief of overcoming our bullshit detectors, there's probably something wrong with that. So anyway, those are a couple of my own counter apologetics. I don't think a lot of people are going to pick those up. Those aren't going to appear in a book anywhere. but
Maybe
but
we
there you
should
go.
work on a
Nope.
new counter apologetics, David. Maybe we can work on that. I like the doubt one. It feels like it's a subset of the argument from silence, but what you've done is you've taken some elements of that and you've given them a supercharger, and you've elevated that section and used that as a pointed challenge, and I like that. I use something similar when I'm talking about uh, God and why would a loving God abandon me, and I say I, as a parent, would never tolerate my daughter having that kind of issue. I would immediately get in the car, drive to her, take her out for a meal, and talk through whatever issue there was with her, to leave her in no doubt whatsoever that I was the parent she wanted to hang on to, and that I did back up what I say to her, and that I did actually care about her and her well-being. I would do that just to solve that doubt. That is the kind of father I am. And yet God cannot do that, will not do that, is incapable of doing that for all of the many thousands of Christians who have found themselves in the position that you and I found ourselves in, where we doubted, first of all, whether or not he was there for us, and secondly, his explicit existence, and he could do nothing to show up to resolve that. Which, if he does exist, shows that he doesn't give a shit about us, show that he cannot be loving, shows that every loving human parent is a better person than him. So I think the doubt angle is powerful, and I like it, and I would absolutely run with that.
Yeah, I mean, doubt should be left for creatures like Santa Claus.
Yeah,
It should be left for creatures like the Tooth Fairy,
yeah.
right? You convince kids that these are
Mm.
true, but I mean, long before kids give up the idea, which I understand is maybe around 12 years old, before they give up on it altogether, they still doubt. They still have questions because you have to fill in, uh, the gaps. So maybe at first you don't have to fill in gaps about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy. They just believe you because
Yeah.
why not? But at some point, they get doubts, and then we make more and more elaborate stories, which is where you get the bullshit.
Yeah.
And at some point, the kids get old enough to say, "Yeah, your explanation sounds like bullshit." They wouldn't say that, but that's how kind of doubt leads into the bullshit
Yeah.
part. Um, Great, but we're talking about a god. We're talking
Hmm.
about a real thing,
Yeah.
right? It should not be subject to the same kind of doubt as a leprechaun.
No.
It should be something more. And there are many people who will hear me right now and just think that guy's stupid. I hate that guy.
Mm.
Fair, fair. I am kind of stupid sometimes, and I'm very hateable. But the one thing that you cannot do is doubt that I exist. It's
No.
impossible for anyone hearing this podcast, and they've heard plenty of AI slop. AI slop is better than me talking right now, okay? But you know that when you are hearing me, you are hearing a real person saying things that they believe. You can't pretend to doubt that I exist. It is not possible. It is not within the healthy human mind to doubt my existence.
Yeah.
Why is it possible to doubt God's existence?
Exactly. Did I ever tell you this story about my experience with my daughter and the Tooth Fairy? Have I ever told you about that?
No.
Oh, that's great. Let me get back to that. First of all, the bullshit argument. I also like the bullshit argument because I think the bullshit argument works for things like the morning after the resurrection. Because you go and line up the Gospels in the order they are written, and then go and read the accounts of that morning in the garden, one after the other, and you see the progression. You see how they're being added in. You see how new bits are added in, and then you see that as bits are added in, the the narrative branches off into different directions. You can see it in stories like that. The birth narrative is similar as well. You line them up, and then the morning before, the crucifixion narrative, you do the same with that. All these bits where you've got elements that are repeated across the Gospels, and then you go and read it. You see that there are differences, and you see the progression of the story. That does not pass the bullshit sniff. That tells you everything you need to know, that these are what humans do. They take a story, they rewrite it, they rejig it, and they express it. And in a new way, it gets expanded upon, new details get added, boring details get dropped off, and you end up with a new version of the story.
Right. Right. And I think we forget, because of our unique time and place in history, we forget that the people who wrote the Bible, every part of the Bible, from the oldest part of it, Job, to the newest part of it, they were all steeped in superstition. They simply believed things that we don't. So an example is when Moses is with the Pharaoh and his magicians. Moses takes a rod, turns into a snake. And Christians would say, yeah, that really happened. You got to understand that the people who wrote the story, though, thought that that was the thing that could happen. But what happens next in the story? Pharaoh's magicians take their rods and turn them into snakes. It's not reported as, like a magic trick. It's just a thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Right? For them,
I remember that causing a problem for me when reading that as a young child, because the Moses thing, I had no problem whatsoever believing that, because God was there. So therefore, God made it happen. And I believed that. That wasn't a problem to believe. As soon as the Pharaoh's people threw their sticks down and they became snakes as well, I was like, how did that happen? Who was the power that got that to happen? And that caused me a problem, and I never resolved it. So I just learnt to accept it and not question it.
It's real power, and it doesn't come from God. So the magic was real.
Yeah.
And there would have been no sniff test bullshit meter for the original readers.
So the snakes had to eat the other snakes to show who was boss.
Exactly. It wasn't enough that a staff turned into a snake. Anybody could do that. Any good magician could do that, right? I mean, they got powers. It was power of Set, I'm sure. But then when they have the snake wars, then it becomes, well, which god is more powerful?
Yeah.
Right. That's the idea. Another one of those stories is the necromancy of the Witch of Endor. Which honestly sounds like a fantastic banger of a sci-fi series, the Witch of Endor. And somebody should write that, by the way. But this was a time when, it was illegal to be a witch. All do not suffer a witch to live. Sorcerers and such. However, under Saul, at least one witch, probably a bunch of them, were alive anyway, but this one is so weird because the king knew about this witch. If people knew about her, they could find him. Where's this witch? Okay, I'm going to go to this witch because I need a witch right now. So clearly, not all witches were killed. No. But what he wants, he wants some necromancy.
Yeah.
He needs some necromancy. He needs to talk to, was it Samuel? He needs to talk to dead Samuel. And the people who wrote the Bible didn't find it odd that you could actually talk to a dead person.
Yep.
You just needed the right power. So the Witch of Endor is like, okay, I'll do it. And she raises fucking Samuel to then chew out Saul from, beyond the veil.
Not just raises him, but summons him from heaven, presumably.
Whatever, heaven, sleep, whatever it is.
Did he have a choice in that matter? Did he get a phone call saying, do you want to take this long distance? He's like, no, I'm playing snooker here. It's all right. I'm fine. I don't want... No. Did he actually have a choice? Was he zapped from his heavenly snooker game
Right. And did
down to
God have a choice? Because God didn't have to let it happen. He
yeah.
could have stopped the witch's power.
Who let the phone call through the switchboard?
Right. There's this power to do necromancy. Necromancy wasn't something, that weird people pretended to do. It was real. It was as real to them as God power was
Yeah.
real. Those are the people who wrote the book. So again, that doesn't come across as bullshit to the original readers. You get into the New Testament where you get Simon the sorcerer.
Yeah.
He wasn't a faker.
No.
He was a freaking real sorcerer who had magic.
Yep.
You get to the slave girl who was also a necromancer, psychic thing. She could call on spirits. That was real. Those people who wrote the story thought, yeah, that's a thing that can happen.
Mm.
So we read these stories today as if we were 2,000-year-old superstitious illiterates.
Mm.
So it's one thing to read all of the God magic and say, yes, but I'll allow that because it's God.
Mm.
But you can't read the Bible and take it seriously without acknowledging that there was other magic besides God too.
Yeah.
And if you believe that there was other magic going on in the Bible, you kind of have to believe it today. There's no reason why whatever power was powering the magic isn't still there. And a lot of Christians are still afraid of things like witchcraft and necromancy. This is why Christians are afraid of Ouija boards and things like that, because it's real to them.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Right, Tooth Fairy, let me try and make the story short, because when I tell a story on your show, it's never short. So, my daughter, she was once very young, and we had the whole teeth thing. So we did the whole obligatory Tooth Fairy thing. She'd leave us
Did
some
you
money.
leave $1 or something under
Yeah,
a pillow or
pound coin or whatever, swap it for the tooth. And then we found that the tooth started being wrapped in a piece of paper, and the piece of paper had a note on it. So she started writing notes to the Tooth Fairy. Who are you? What's your backstory? So my wife and I invented a backstory for the Tooth Fairy and started writing replies back. And so we started getting this weird scenario where every time there was a tooth being exchanged for some money, there was this whole complex messaging system of questions and answers that had to be done. So the questions were very probing, sometimes personal, and it was clear that my daughter was doing some deep thinking about this. And one day she confessed all and said to my wife, "The Tooth Fairy is really you and Dad, isn't it?" My wife breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Yes, thank goodness. Can we stop with the whole notes thing now?" To which my daughter replied, says, "No, that's my favourite bit." And then the notes became even more elaborate, asking questions that required even more detail. And then on top of that, she would lie her body on her pillow at night to make the process of extracting the tooth from under the pillow as difficult as possible. And then she'd put toys on the floor so that actually getting from the door to the bed to get the tooth out from under the pillow was actually an obstacle course in its own right. And having done that and read the note and invented bullshit answers to all the ridiculous questions on the note, you had to go back through it all again to put the note back under the pillow to get back out again, all without waking the fucker up. And it was an absolute ball ache every single time. And my wife eventually gave up and said, "I am not playing this game anymore, Matthew. It's up to you. If you want to carry on entertaining our daughter like that, you do it, because I'm done."
Hello, barefoot in Lego. Well, you understand your mistake. I saw it right away. When your daughter asked, said, "You're the Tooth Fairy, right?" And you said yes. You did not say that there's no such thing as a Tooth Fairy. She still probably to this day believes that you are, in fact, the tooth fairy, and you're going around collecting teeth. Okay, so all you did was identify the tooth fairy. you, you did not eradicate the tooth fairy. So, by the way, I got this. I got this tooth that used to have a crown, and now it's just it doesn't, and there's some exposed nerves. Dental work is really expensive in this country, so now that I know that you're the tooth fairy, can you help?
You have to write me a note.
Not a problem for me, sir. I'm already 500 words in. So,
So when the last tooth went, it was a major celebration because bless her, I love her dearly, but she really put us through something on that one, and it was
I think
great.
she gave you what you deserved. I think
Yeah,
I think you earned that one.
I did earn that one. Bless her, and I hope more children do that kind of thing because it shows an inquisitive mind, and I love her for that.
Right. And the bullshit that you have to make up to keep that going is a part of my highly intricate argument from bullshit.
Yeah.
So,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
because the original, it's not that you just have to fight your natural instinct, but as you ask questions, the answers become more and more bullshit.
Yeah.
And that is true to this day. As you argue with Christians and you see how they try to get around it, the answers become more and more. This sounds like something you made up,
Yeah.
right?
That was one of the things I remember being and doing when I think back, I used to do as a Christian. I'm so glad that that pressure no longer exists anymore. And I can just say, I don't know, fuck it, but I'm cool. Was I would get asked questions that I didn't know the answer to. And I literally would, on the spot, make up bullshit so that I had an answer because
Mhm.
I saw and I was indoctrinated into the mindset of not having an answer is a weakness. You need to have
Right,
an answer. And
right.
I hate those memories of myself when I used to do that. And losing that compulsion was one of the greatest freedoms of losing my faith.
Okay. Here's a 2 minute uh, theological question. Okay. I'll try to run through it in my mind. I did something like 5 shows, so I compounded a lot of apologetics. I don't know if you'll be on the finale or not. It depends on if you help me with my molar, but but
I find a good punch is often a good solution.
definitely not going to be on the show. So just adjust
Phew,
my dial
whee!
a little bit. Okay. So worst apologetic. I think the ones that I did were arguments from science. So I lumped in anthropic, fine tuning. I didn't really talk about the Kalam because I think Kalam is stupid, but you could put that in there too. I did um, ontological argument, very painful. I did presupposition. Uh, I did tag the transcendental argument for God. Tag seems like, I did the moral argument because it's always the moral argument. Uh, I'm gonna always do that even when I'm not doing arguments. I think it's just the Christian's greatest weakness, and it needs to be. You need to just keep opening that wound and pouring salt in it. So of these apologetic arguments, and I know that there are, technically more. What do you think is the worst apologetic argument?
I don't know.
Okay, no
I'm
matter what you
tempted.
say, I'm going to miscategorize what you say
Yeah,
on the show
probably.
when I actually do this. So,
Yeah, probably. I see this, and I'm pretty sure I've said this words to this effect before, because I'm pretty sure Andrew's asked me that question previously. This is the inverse of what's your favorite child kind of question.
yeah, yeah.
And
This is the if you could legally just get rid of one of your kids,
yeah,
who's going?
yeah, it's because they're all bad.
Hmm.
And um, my because my belief about apologetics arguments is the root of all of them stems out of I have to believe what the Bible says. And that's just a bad place to start. And if they all root at that, then they're all just as bad as each other. Um, so the way I would probably answer that is go, okay, the one that's the least bad, because I've mentioned it already, is possibly fine tuning, because it at least pretends to have some science behind it, but it's
Hmm.
only a lack of science rather than actual science. But all of the others are an equal zero below it, and that one's just marginally above zero. So the scale is so small that you can't really tell a difference from a reasonable distance.
Stop calling my scale small.
This is not a golden scale, I hasten to
What
add.
did you mean by scale? Never mind. So it sounds like what you're trying to do is do the Christian worm your way out of answering the question.
That is exactly what
Um,
I'm doing. Yeah.
yeah,
You can take the Christianity out of the man, but you can't take the man out of Christianity. It's something
yeah.
like that.
So
Yeah.
I look. It's not fair for me to give my answer because that's going to be revealed in the show
Well,
when I rank
last
these.
time, last time you had me on your show doing one of these things, I think I said the same sort of thing. They're all the same score, zero. So I'm just giving you a heads
Right.
up that I intend to do the same thing.
As if I didn't expect this from you. You know what? I am going to break the seal and I'm going to give an answer and the reason I can give an answer
You're
is
wrong, by the way.
I will be changing my answer on the day of the show. Uh,
I knew it. I
I've
knew it.
introduced every one of the shows as this is the absolute worst
This is
one, except for the next one that I'm going to do.
yeah.
So I agree with you that they're all bad, but I'm trying to think at least remotely Christianly. So I would agree with you that these science arguments are the best, but only because they at least pretend to they give a nod to the idea that reality is important. Um, they're all a lie, though. I'll be honest with you. I just have to say it. So they can potentially be the worst because they actually don't care about the science. They all start with presupposition. So, for instance, if we took the Kalam, which I didn't talk about, but if we just take that, you start with something like everything that uh, uh,
Begins to exist.
everything that begins everything everything begins to exist. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Maybe the first one. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. And I mean, I could stop you right there. I mean, I could let you go on,
Mm.
but the presupposition behind, as you say, all apologetics here, you you say it starts the Bible. I just say it starts with God. That is the presupposition, and so the apologetics are just kind of backward, kind of reverse engineering
Mm.
God to come up with a disingenuous question. Um, so the kalam, everything that begins to exist has a cause. Well, what if it doesn't? Do
Mm.
you think the Christian would say, "Oh, well, we've learned in science that everything that begins to exist doesn't have a cause. I guess there's no God." No, not one of them would say that.
Mhm.
They would just rejigger the argument and
Yeah,
keep right on going. They
exactly.
don't care about
That is the
what
power
the
of their
science says.
arguments.
Right.
They twist them to whatever situation there is so that they can conclude God. They are justifications for a pre-existing conclusion. That is all
Right.
what apologetics arguments are, and that is why I score them all as zero.
If they were actually concerned about the science, then the science argument would actually be a good argument.
Mm.
It's just that they don't actually care because when we learn something new about the science, just move the goalposts a little
Mm.
bit and they're fine. Uh, it doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, they would say we ought to obey God rather than man. My faith
Yeah,
is in God. It's not in
yeah,
some lab.
yeah.
So they always have an out. So they will use the science as long as it's good for them, and they will abandon it the moment it's not. But that never affects their ultimate apologetic that they started with. Tag is, I find fairly offensive because it starts with the idea that you can't know anything without God. Tag is one of the most circular arguments there is, and it just assumes that there is this fount of knowledge that is the source of all other knowledge. It doesn't even attempt to prove it. It's as close to a claim that says, I am an unsupported claim. Come at me, bro. That's tag. And so I find tag and presup to be among the most annoying. In fact, I don't even really find them arguments.
Yeah,
they're very.
So I do have an answer. There's a -1 answer, and it's any argument that starts, "For the fear of the Lord is the source of all knowledge," or however it goes. That's the precept thing. Yeah. As soon as you start with that, I'm out. Not interested. Just fuck off and go make a cup of coffee. I really am not interested. You've lost me. -1.
The moment Romans 1 comes up in support of an argument, we're actually done. I might continue to talk to you, but I'm not actually talking to you anymore.
No. I will no longer respect your
done.
Face whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'm done.
So we're just making noise in microphones at that point because you have fallen below the level, or at least your argument has fallen below the level of something that I need to interact with.
Yes.
So that's what's happening there. But I am going to give an answer, though. I'm going to say this week, today, at this moment, it is the ontological argument. It is any argument that can be parodied so easily has got to be a bad argument. Furthermore, I don't know of any argument, maybe the Clum, that has been revised so many times since its beginning, so that people who use the ontological argument, they barely mention Anselm. Anselm's argument was so bad that it immediately began, to be saved. Someone would come along and say, okay, well, let me restate that. And then that's bad. Someone comes along and says, let me restate that.
Is this the greatest conceivable being?
It's the greatest conceivable piece of shit of an argument.
I know. That is why the only supernatural being left in existence is Eric the God-eating fish, because Eric has eaten all the other gods.
I haven't heard of this god, but already it sounds less bullshit than other gods. So yeah, it's. I think it's got to be that argument because it has so many caveats. It has so many assumptions, and you don't even have to be good at the argument. You could hear it for the first time and just say, "So, I imagine the greatest possible thing." And then it would be greater if that thing is real. So God is real. One, that just sounds like bullshit. But two, okay, since I've imagined that thing, I want to go back because I can imagine something greater now.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole reason fiction exists is because imagination is greater than reality.
Right. And I know that Christians don't like the use of the word imagination when running the ontological argument. They like exactly the word conceive, and they can kind of equivocate on that.
Because pseudo-intellectualism is attractive to people who smell bullshit.
Yeah, right. And so I think it's probably even harder for me to respect than tag, to be honest with you. It seems like a childish way of proving God to a 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
There's no aspect. I've debated Tony Costa, who's supposed to be real good with this argument, and I don't think this is a secret at this point because we've talked about it. Dale helped me prep. I mean, he set up the debate, but I told him, look, Dale, what I know of the ontological argument is just stupid. Um, Tell me about it. And so he actually helped me prep for the show. Um, I guess I learned a few things in that prep. It was helpful. We've done that behind the scenes on a couple of different things. There was nothing that Tony Costa said on that show that was either new or surprising or remotely interesting. Uh, there's no way I should have been able to hang in that conversation. And on a different kind of argument, maybe I wouldn't be able to hang into it. Lisa Jackson got a chance to. She was maybe one of the most delightful of Dale's guests that I talked to.
Liz Jackson.
Liz Jackson, yeah.
She's the one that really pushes a slightly adjusted version of Pascal's wager. Yeah, it's still bullshit.
Yeah,
but at least she admits that it's all about imagining the God that you prefer to have. At least she's honest about that. But I don't know why she manages to convince herself that it's worthwhile believing in God, having admitted that you may as well just pretend the God that you want exists.
She is so delightful, though. And she's so knowledgeable.
Women always are.
Yeah,
it's the men that are the dickheads.
let me not push back against that too hard, but I disagree. But if I were, say, debating her on Pascal, I could lose because she's just that smart and that well prepared. There's nobody that I could debate on the ontological argument and feel like I lost. It's not an argument. It's embarrassing. I feel dumber when I argue the ontological argument because I mean the best thing I think that can happen with the ontological argument is that you get stuck thinking of, well, what is a great making quality? We think about that, and then we get into deontology. What is a virtue? And this, of course, leads us into my favorite argument, the moral argument. And you're just dead at that point. But the best thing that can happen for the Christian arguing the ontological argument is for it to transition into something else, anything else. Because as the ontological argument as a philosophical position, it's bad philosophy. It's bad theology. It's just bad in every aspect of it. Now, am I going to say that next week when I do the show? I don't know, because as you say, they're all bad. They're all the worst. The other one that I might say is the worst is the moral argument. I don't understand why Christians bring it up. When Christians bring up the moral argument, they're just handing you the tools that you wanted to beat them with anyway. Why are you doing that? Why would a Christian ever mention morality ever as if that's some kind of proof for God? The most they can do with a moral argument is prove an evil God exists.
Yeah.
You can't get anything that's close to a good God out of the moral argument. Yeah. So the moral argument could be the worst simply because it does the exact opposite of what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I'll grant you that.
Yeah, so as a philosophical argument, it's bad. You've lost the moment you bring it up. Anyway, that's look. We'll see what happens with apologetics. I appreciate the indulgence, Matt. If you've got one more topic, I'm gonna give it to you.
We've gone far enough. We're dangerously close to 4 hours, I think, which is just quite something for something that was just going to be a short monthly catch up on the news and a bit of a chat.
That's why you can only do it once a month, man.
Yeah, we'll see how the next one goes. This is
it'll be 2 hours or less.
I will not hold you to that, David. I know you. I know me. We always have fun when we do this together. I will never hold you to that. But let's call it a day now. We've got a list. We'll defer some of the items. Mm-hmm. Comments below, listeners. Let's have your thoughts down below. I will do an introduction to this, and so that people know what to expect from this video before they commit to a couple of hours of it. I'll see if I can get some kind of table of contents of what we're talking about in there. We'll see. It depends how much time I've got this week. Thank you so much, David. What else do you want to plug before we sign off? Yeah,
Yeah. So,
you've already slipped all your
yeah.
adverts in under the radar,
Yeah.
haven't you? So your summer of or your spring of apologetics is nearly at an end. You're going to do a
Yeah.
fantastic final show. I may or may not be on that. It all
Mm-hmm.
depends on lots of things. Play season is over for me, so I've got a little bit of capacity, but it's going to start again. But then I'm also moving house at some point this summer. I've also potentially got 20 consecutive days of training at work, which will rule an entire month off me doing anything because it's going to be a very intensive month. So my summer here at Still Unbelievable is looking very busy. Expect episode frequency to dip compared to this time last year, purely because of everything that's going on in my life.
Yeah.
So we will just deal with that. So David is my cheap excuse to be able to fill in some content. Thank you, David. I always love you for being my bitch that way.
And I love it too.
I know
Uh,
you do. You will
I don't
always
even
be
know
my
what
golden friend.
I don't know what I agreed to, but I love it. Hey, look, you said it one last time and it was enough to put me over the top. It's a Britishism. You keep saying moving house.
That's what we call
What
it.
the
Moving
fuck?
house.
You're not moving your goddamn house. Your
I
house is
am.
there. You know what we say when we get ready to move? We say, I'm moving. Done. Because we don't need the moving houses. I'm
Yes. I
When you
am
change
moving.
job, are you moving jobs?
Yes, that's
What
what we say. Well, we say changing.
Wow.
We say we're changing jobs because we're
Okay.
changing from one job to another, and we're moving our working location. I'm moving house because this here is my house.
What else
That
would
wall's
you be
behind me,
moving?
and then I am moving with all my stuff, the ladder included, to a new
Obviously.
location, and I'm going to
What
be
else would you
moving
be
from
moving
this
though? Why do you need to specify moving house as if we thought you were moving a wheelbarrow? Why? What is that?
because we're British and we have to be explicit.
Okay, it's like all those silent, unnecessary e's at the end of your words. Um,
What?
yeah, all the words in uh, English, we'll just call it English, that end in e that are silent.
Oh, like done E and home E and cough E and
Okay, I don't know that coffee. Well, maybe coffee is an example because it's got two e's. So, like the one e wasn't enough. Let's put another one on there so that they know it's an e. All right.
nosy IE.
Okay, we're done.
We
Skeptics and Seekers
okay.
Squarespace.com. Longer discussing how to discuss ways. Send me an email, skeptics and seekers at gmail.com. Until
And
next time, I'll see you in the comments. And in the meantime, stay reasonable, people.
I love you.
I
You took it out of
stole
my
it.
mouth.
I stole it. I did it.